Hi guys, welcome back to another exciting video, so sit back, relax, and let's get started. I've been seeing a lot of these lately and wanted to put my own spin on one. Depending on how this first couple of chapters go, I'll keep going. Oh, and a general application. If it's bolded, it'll be from the multiverse. So on with the show. It had been a month after the raid on the Shihisaki, and the students of Class 1 were sitting inside. A torrential rainstorm had forced them to stay inboard. A few of the boys were playing video games. Sato was baking in the communal kitchen. The girls were sitting around snacking on a few of Sato's baked goods and chatting. Izuku and a few others were studying at the main table. So, all in all, it was fine. Then a huge bolt of lightning struck the Class 1 dorm and the power flickered for a minute before shutting off. Damn, and I was just about to stomp you again, Kirishima. Bakugo yelled as the lights went out and the game they were playing was lost. Then they noticed something as the lights were flickering. What looked like electricity was surging around the TV and made it start glowing. Once the glow had eased up and the lights had come back on, the students got a better look at the big TV. Nothing seems off, but that was weird. What was with that glow? Izuku asks before Kirishima tries to start up the game system again. But it doesn't work. Oh man, it must have fried the TV, so we can't continue the tournament. While most of the guys were complaining, Izuku went up and got a closer look at the TV. But when he got close, the TV started glowing again before showing a strange image. Guys, I think something else is going on, Izuku says before reaching out and touching it. When he does, the TV powers up and shows a strange new image on the screen. This is accompanied by what they think is the voice of All Might as well. Izuku, wake up. You'll be late for work. Once that is heard, the screen adjusts to a scene of a panda with bright green eyes like Izuku and fluffier hair on top of his head. Everyone in the dorm is looking at the image with their heads twisting to the side, wondering what is going on. Izuku taps the screen again and the image stops. I guess only Midoriya can make this work. Maybe this could be interesting. Touch it again and see what happens, Momo said before a few others gathered around. Izuku did just that and sat down as part of the movie roll. Within Izuku's room were posters of multiple kung fu masters, replica weapons, and his personal favorites, action figures of the Furious Five: tiger, mantis, monkey, crane, and viper. He acts out some of the motions to each of their styles before noticing he is being watched. And when he hears his dad call out again, he goofs around a bit trying to make his shuriken stick in the wall. Seems like no matter the universe, Deku-kun is still a fanboy and otaku, Ochako says in a light teasing tone. Izuku, on the other hand, can't refute the statement at all. Todoroki, on the other hand, keeps going back in his mind to his thought that Izuku is a secret love child of All Might. The others are curious what mess Izuku is going to get himself into in this story. After he has fallen down the stairs, he looks up toward the panda-shaped shadow of his father and says, "Sorry, Dad." Sorry doesn't make the noodles. At saying this, what was casting the panda shadow moves to the side and Toshinori Yagi is standing there as a goose. He reprimands Izuku and asks what he was doing. When Izuku lies about dreaming about noodles, his father is ecstatic about the fact and that he can finally be entrusted with the secret ingredients of his famous soup. Izuku is uneasy about disappointing his dad, so he goes along with it. But once his father's back is turned, he looks up to the Jade Palace. Suo, no one is going to comment on the fact that the species here don't match up, Minda says with a confused look on his face. A few others comment the same, and Izuku is the first to mention he may be adopted. That aside, that soup looks really good. Wonder what the secret ingredient is? Kirishima says, drooling a bit. I have to agree. I wonder if they could make some really good soba noodles and mix them together, Todoroki says. A few other people note that. Izuku doesn't look very happy, does he? I guess he wants to try and learn kung fu, but he can't with as heavy as he is. It'd be hard to do, Kaminari says. And Kirishima smacks him for that, noting that his own mentor Fat Gum was a strong fighter despite being hefty. At the Jade Palace, Shifu Aizawa was sitting in the courtyard playing his flute. He had a long ponytail behind his ears and a scar under his right eye. All the while the Furious Five were getting ready to strike. Then each jump out of their various points and charge at Aizawa. Why are they attacking Aizawa-sensei? Ida shouts and a few others wonder if he will be okay. Izuku, though, notices that the ones attacking are the five and has an idea on how this will play out. Right as they closed in on Aizawa, he opened his eyes and dodges, deflects, and counters each of their strikes. Not one student lays a hand on him. Well done, students. If you were trying to disappoint me, he says with an aggressive tone. Wow, he's just as critical as ever, Mina says with a deadpan voice. Izuku then mentions, I had a feeling that was going to happen. The ones attacking were the five, so more than likely it was just a training exercise. But yeah, he's pretty harsh. As he starts explaining where each of them went wrong, a messenger comes and tells him Master Uguay-Nezu wants to speak with him. Master, you summoned me. Is something wrong? He looks up and sees the shell of a tortoise with a white beard and hair and a scar over his eye. Said master was meditating while biting down on his staff up in the air. Why would something need to be wrong to speak with my friend? So nothing is wrong, Aizawa says hopefully. Nezu then shakes his head before saying, well, I didn't say that. The elder master starts slowly blowing out each candle, taking deliberate breaths each time. Seriously, what the heck is with Nezu? It's kinda unsettling how relaxed he is. If he's planning to blow out each candle, we're gonna be here a while. Were the common thoughts tossed around. A few even noted that he was a different kind of animal and spoke in riddles not unlike the Nezu they knew. As you see Aizawa's eye twitch, he then winds up and uses a gentle shockwave to extinguish all of the candles. You were saying, Nezu had a saddened and worried look on his ancient face before he says, I have had a vision. Hitoshi will return. As he says that, Aizawa has a flashback to the day Hitoshi rampaged through the Valley of Peace. That is impossible. He is in prison. Shinso is the first thing everyone says. Izuku has a sad look, noting that proving he wasn't a villain was one of his motivations to be a hero. And now he was such a dangerous enemy. He scared both Nezu and Aizawa. Nothing is impossible. At hearing Nezu say that Aizawa calls a messenger to double all of the guards and everything else, Hitoshi must not leave that prison. As the messenger flies off, Nezu notes as he walks away, one often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. And while Aizawa is panicking a bit at the thought of Hitoshi taking revenge on the valley, what is that supposed to mean? If he's taking the time to bolster guards, then it should be fine, right? Are a few things stated. Momo though is the one to say, I think he means that, sometimes if you try to fight or push back against some things too hard, then it will just cause what you were trying to stop to happen. That still doesn't make sense, Gyro says with her eyes half-lidded. Nezu stops him by saying his mind is like the water. When agitated, it becomes difficult to see. But if allowed to settle, the answer becomes clear. He says as the reflection shows a dragon statue with a scroll in its mouth, with Aizawa noting it is the dragon scroll. At the mention of the artifact's name, the students are intrigued by what it could mean. And some of the more zen and intelligent students see what Nezu is getting at with saying you have to settle your mind, or calm it in the path can be clear. And now all of the students are a bit hyped up to see what the scroll can do, and who would wield it. It is time. But who? Who is worthy to be trusted with the secret to limitless power? To become the dragon warrior, Aizawa says with admiration and determination. And Nezu says, I don't know. And then the screen goes black. At that everyone just face faults and anime fall on the ground. Are you kidding me? He built that whole thing up and it's leaving us on a cliffhanger. Bakugo shouts. The rest of the students also want to know what happens next. Izuku tries to get it to start up but it does nothing. It may just be temporary. But I agree, I want to know what happens next, Ida says with intrigue. They each take a turn to get it movie to start up again, but nothing happens. So they leave it for now and try to go on with the rest of their day. I might continue this, and I'm actually working on 2 other stories, both martial arts based. One where Izuku learns Jolan from the Atom series, and another where he is trained by the successor to Taifu. If you don't know it, it was a PS1 beat-em-up game. And I've imagined a lot of story bits with it, including Izuku being tiger-spirited and can become one after a lot of training. So please review and maybe leave a comment on those other ideas and suggestions on the next multiverse. So for this whole multiverse, I'm gonna go for a few different movies and stories I think will be interesting, like an Assassin's Creed 2 story or a few other movies. The DC and Marvel stuff has kinda been done to death. So on with the show. The next day the students weren't sure who they should report the strange incident with their large TV to. But Ida said, if it is working fine now, then we shouldn't have to worry. Though I would like to see what happened next. A few others mirrored that thought and discussed it during breaks. And this was not missed by a few teachers. So what exactly happened or you say happened to the large TV yesterday? Aizawa said as he came into the one at dorms with all might. A few of the students coughed before trying to cover up the incident. But then the TV started glowing again. Izuku got curious, so he went up and touched it again. And yet again, it sprung to life with the images they had seen yesterday. All Might and Aizawa were both chuckling a bit at some of the actions on the screen, and it appeared that the movie and images wouldn't be stopping at Nezu saying he doesn't know who the next hero could be. Nezu is kinda goofy here. Should we call him? All Might asks, but Aizawa says not to. At least not right away. I want to see where this goes. I know this is the student common room, but do you mind if we stick around for a bit? At a quick negative from Class 1A, they all settle in to watch the next part of the movie. As Izuku is serving noodles at the shop, he sees a poster being put up for the selection of the Dragon Warrior. As he is encouraging other people to go, Toshinori brings out the noodle cart and tells him to sell noodles everyone. After some trying to avoid it, he reluctantly says, I could also sell the bean buns. They're about to go bad. I feel kinda bad. All Might says before explaining that he feels like his counterpart is pressuring Izuku too much. A few of the others are just as surprised at the humble start for the person who most see as the most heroic. As Nezu is walking down the steps, Aizawa mentions that it is a historic day, master. Yes, and one I feared I would not live to see. Nezu says slowly, and at Aizawa's affirmative, Nezu tells his next point. Whomever I choose will not only bring peace to the valley, but also to you. Aizawa is confused by this statement but pushes past so his students can showcase their skills. Aizawa wonders to himself what that could mean. As well, the students are all interested to see the showcase of the skills the five have. I know I'm the best of all of us, Bakugo shouts loudly while the others were commenting about the styles involved. I'm pretty sure each of the five is based on a real form of Kung Fu. Momo comments, and Minta is a bit annoyed at the fact that even these anthropomorphized animals don't really look like humans. They just look like animals. No human traits. After this, and seeing Izuku abandon the cart, montage of Izuku trying to get into the Jade Palace grounds commences, as well as him falling at multiple points to see at least the slightest amount of the tournament. Okay, as funny as this is, I'd wish he could get in to see the tournament. Yeah, but the first pole vault attempt in the bamboo catapult thing was hilarious. Talk about a weak hit at the start though. These are a few comments tossed around, while Izuku is just facepalming at his other self's lack of ability in the whole endeavor. Nezu then stops the demonstration by saying, I sense the dragon warrior is among us. Aizawa then calls the five to the center of the arena and says, citizens of the Valley of Peace, Master Oogway will now choose the dragon warrior. With this last statement, Izuku is more desperate to get in. This culminates with Izuku strapping fireworks to the bottom of a chair to launch himself, only for it to fail. As he lays on the ground, he starts to cry a bit. A few of the others also feel bad for Izuku. He just wanted to see the tournament. Why can't he just do that? This isn't fair, Kirishima and Kaminari say while looking down a bit in pity. Oh come on son, let's get back to work, Toshinori says with sympathy. And as Izuku is getting up, the rockets ignite. After slamming into the wall for a moment, he gets sent flying upwards in a ball of fire, with the whole valley admiring the sight. And then he crashes down into the center ring. At the whole spectacle, everyone from UA is wide-eyed and laughing again. Well, he gotten at least. So who do you think the dragon warrior is? Sato asks while munching on some popcorn. Bakugo is quick to shout that he would be the dragon warrior. There's no way any of the rest can compete with a tiger. Izuku starts to wake up, with each member of the five looking at him with confusion, except for Tiger who looks ready to strike. When he turns over, he sees someone pointing at him. It is Master Nezu. Oh, okay, sorry. I just wanted to see who the dragon warrior was. How interesting, Nezu says as Izuku stands. It is then that Tiger asks if Nezu is pointing at him. Why the hell is he pointing at that shitty Deku? I'm the one who is supposed to be the dragon warrior, Bakugo shouts loudly. But for a few of the others, they aren't too surprised, figuring that, in any world some part of Izuku would always be capable. Him, Nezu says while still pointing at Izuku. Who? Izuku says and shifts to the side to move out of the way. But Nezu's finger still follows him. After confirming what he said, Nezu announces, the universe has brought us the dragon warrior, while raising Izuku's arm up. And then the five, Aizawa, Toshinori, and Izuku just ask, what? A few of the UA members' jaws drop. They also can't believe what they have seen. While Bakugo looks like he's about to blow something up, or punch a wall, or do some other very destructive thing. So Aizawa uses his quirk to stop him and tie him up with his capture cloth. With that, a procession begins to take Izuku up to the main Jade Palace. But Aizawa voices his disapproval and disagreement with the choice. You were about to point at Tiger and that flabby thing fell in front of him. That was just an accident. Nezu shakes his head before saying, there are no accidents. While that sounds wise, I'm not so sure about that. Ida is quick to say while All Might is giving both Aizawas a scathing glare for the rude comments toward Izuku. I guess he doesn't pull punches no matter what world he is in, Kyoko says as she watches Shifu Aizawa trying to defend his point. After this, the five apologize for failing. No, if the panda has not quit by morning, then I will have failed you. As he says this, the image shifts to a snow-swept peak, with the goose Hizashi landing, and saying to the guards, I have a message from Master Aizawa. Didn't notice that was Mike. Guess it makes sense he's a messenger, Aizawa says while everyone else is curious about the prison, and how many criminals are held within. When Hizashi delivers his message, the warden Vachiranji is outraged. What? Double the guards? Your prison may not be secure enough. You doubt my prison's security, he demands of Hizashi, who quickly responds with, absolutely not. Aizawa does. I'm just the messenger. Enji then gives a message to send back saying that Chorgom prison is escape-proof. Todoroki has an annoyed look at hearing his father's voice. Guess he's overconfident no matter the world he is in, he says angrily. As Hizashi is looking over the edge, Enji spooks him before explaining the security measures. One way in, one way out, 1,000 guards, and only one prisoner. Hizashi though is trembling before saying, yes, but that one prisoner is Hitoshi. Okay, seriously, how dangerous could Shinso be? You need all of that just for one guy, are the general comments tossed around the room. Izuku, on the other hand, is a bit panicked, as this means his other self has to fight someone who requires all of that security. Then again, I may have to fight AFO someday. I hope not, but, well, this might be comparable. At the near bottom, Enji orders the guards to lower them down, while also taking time to mess with the goose visitor. And at the bottom, they see Hitoshi bound with chains around his wrists, a tortoise-like shell on his torso with points sticking out of it, imprisoning him more. Behold, Hitoshi. At seeing Hitoshi held in place like he was, they were all amazed and terrified by the amount of security once again. For the love of living hell, why does this guy require so much batshit insane security? Bakugo asks. The others mirror his thoughts and gulp as they look at the visage before them. When Hizashi says he'll wait nearby, Enji chuckles before saying it was perfectly safe. As they move closer, he orders the crossbows to be at the ready. Hey tough guy, did you hear? Uguayas finally gives someone the dragon scroll and it's not gonna be you. Hizashi tells the rhino to not taunt him, but Enji is completely calm. Oh my god, could he be any more of an arrogant idiot? Todoroki and Bakugo shout as they watch Rhino endeavor acting like he has everything under control, and that the ultimate fighter is going nowhere. What's he gonna do? I've got him completely immobilized. After he says this, he stomps on Hitoshi's tail before taunting him more. I quote him, good. I've seen enough. I'll fly back and tell Aizawa he has nothing to worry about. Hizashi says in a panicked tone. With Enji mirroring this thought, all of the people watching this whole matter go down just shake their heads. Man, I know he's kind of a jerk in our world, but he's being extra rude and harsh here, Mina says, and quite a few of the others agree with her. Just as they leave though, one of Hizashi's feathers falls next to Hitoshi, and he opens his eyes for the first time, rage filling them, before taking the feather with his tail. Everyone's eyes widen at seeing that, and a few almost wet themselves. Izuku though notes something as the scene changes. That was one of Mike's feathers, right? A few of the other realize he is correct, but don't see where he is going with the thought. It might have to do with what Nezu said. One meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. If Aizawa hadn't sent Mike, he might not have a means to escape. Bakugo and Ida though scoff at the notion, the former thinking there is no way Hitoshi is escaping from Chorgam. The later though says, it's just one feather, Midoriya, and he can barely move his tail. What can he do with that? Izuku though is hoping both are right. Back at the Jade Palace, Izuku is geeking out at all of the artifacts and weapons within the main hall. And at meeting Shifu Aizawa, he freaks out a bit before breaking the urn of whispering warriors. As he is trying to collect the pieces, Aizawa says, so you're the legendary dragon warrior? I guess so. Izuku responds, but Aizawa is quick to cut him off. No matter the world, you will always be a fanboy. Midoriya. Kaminari jokes a bit at seeing Izuku's actions. A few of the others laugh a bit, but some are concerned about what Aizawa is going to say next. You are not the dragon warrior. You will never be the dragon warrior until you have learned the secret of the dragon scroll. At that, he points up to the scroll in question before Izuku asks how they are supposed to get it down. A few others agree with that thought, saying, yeah, what is the point to having a sacred object there? If you need it down or to clean or check it, it's almost impossible to get to. Others laugh a bit at Izuku's suggestions for retrieving the artifact though. Aizawa then chuckles before saying that it isn't that simple, and then proceeds to berate and mock Izuku's build and form, as well as his hygiene. You are a serious ass in this one, Aizawa, All Might says to his colleague. Aizawa though can't deny what he says. Even if I don't agree with the choice right away, Shifu doesn't have to be quite so harsh about all of this. There are better ways to go about it. And when Izuku tries to stand up for himself, Aizawa quickly breaks out the Wuxi finger hold. The Wuxi finger hold, not the Wuxi finger hold. Oh, you know this hold, Aizawa says with a mocking smirk. And when Izuku explains its history, Aizawa then says, well then you must know what happens when I flex my pinky. The students and teachers are all confused by Izuku's reaction in the other world and tilt their heads to the side. Why does that freak him out more that the urn that had a bunch of dead guys in it? Zero is quick to question. The rest are also confused, while the teachers are questioning what is so intimidating about grabbing someone's finger. As Izuku is panicking again, Aizawa decides to intimidate him more. You know the hardest part of this hold? The hardest part is cleaning up afterwards. As he says that, he lets out a cruel chuckle. All the while Izuku is just asking him to relax. But Aizawa decides to put the final stomp into where Izuku stands. Now you listen here, Panda. Nezu may have chosen you, but when I'm through with you, I promise you, you are going to wish he hadn't. Are we clear? Okay, your other self has some serious issues at this point. He's going overboard, All Might says again. And this time Aizawa has no way to defend himself, admitting that even his expulsions were nowhere near as harsh as what Shifu Aizawa is trying to do. Izuku gives a panicked nod again, and then Aizawa gives one last harsh chuckle, before saying, I can't wait to get started. At that, the screen goes black again, before a screen pops up with a timer. Guess it's giving us a 15-minute break between each this time. Izuku says. Aizawa then stands to get a drink, but not before apologizing to Izuku for his counterpart's harsh treatment. Izuku stammers out a response, but it gets jumbled along the way. Well, Panda Midoriya is dead. Aizawa will see to that. Shiro is quick to say. Takoyami and Koda off to the side are quick to offer up prayers for Izuku's other self. The others take some time to restock their snacks and drinks before the next scene starts, so I'm leaving it at that for now. With this, I'm probably going to skip certain parts, or rather I'll skip over descriptions of events, at least for this. I'll come up with some original multiverses, but I just wanted to do a few that relate to other media. Anyway, please review, and maybe check out some of my other stories. I'd like to start on the Assassin's Creed set, but I know I have to finish this one first. I'm not gonna just leave it for a while and possibly forget my place with it. Oh, and anyone else who has some other chapters to add to this, please leave a review. But also maybe leave a title that I can understand, because a few of that have commented. Well, I have no idea what they are talking about. Anyway, on with the show. Once the 15 minutes were up, the whole of Class 1 had settled in again. But they had some new guests. Aizawa had called Nezu, who was interested in his other self. And the two from Class 1B were also interested in where they fit in this odd story that was unfolding. So, let me get this straight. Your TV here is showing an odd show, where a bunch of us are anthropomorphic animals, and Midoriya has just been chosen as the greatest warrior by the turtle Nezu. Kamakiri asks with an incredulous look on his face. The ones from Wana just shrug and say yeah before moving on to watch what happens next. Shinso had also been called and was genuinely concerned when they said he was apparently a major villain, enough to warrant a specially made prison with 1,000 guards to keep me contained. Just how strong am I? He questions in his mind as the scene begins. Aizawa escorts Izuku into the special training hall for the masters and all other students, with spiraling dragons underneath the 7 swinging clubs of oblivion, where Tiger is practicing his evasion and other strikes. Just beyond that is the jade tortoise shell where Crane lands and uses sweeping strikes to parry the arrows fired at him. Then Tiger joins him to spar on the rim of the tortoise. Hell yeah, show you up on the skills glasses. I wouldn't be so sure, Bakugo. I appear to be holding my own against you. Ida and Bakugo snipe back at each other. The others are just thinking the whole training hall looks crazy for what most think would be rudimentary. Just beyond is the gauntlet of wooden warriors, and Mantis winds up a bit, before blitzing through multiple and avoiding the rapid turnaround of each of the wooden training dummies. Past that is the field of fiery death, where Viper nimbly evades each of the flame spouts, appearing to include a few strikes and counters while evading. Kendo and Kamakiri are both impressed with their other version's skill and technique with evading. I should learn some Mantis Kung Fu, Kamakiri says. Kendo, though, is thinking she could make great use of snake, crane, and tiger styles. Monkey is then seen nimbly swinging around on the 7 Talon rings, and doing combos of strikes while in the air, before passing right through the center of one with inches to spare. Back on the dragons, Tiger has returned to the exercise, and quickly destroys one of the 7 clubs, sending a piece right at Izuku's face. OOWOW. OO, he shouts after it hits, and Aizawa stands to the side and tells him to begin. A few of the others laugh at Izuku getting hit, but others note Mina's skill and nimble movements. I already use my dance moves a bit. Maybe this style could complement that. We could look into a teacher, if there are any who still practice the old ways, Nezu says while watching with interest. Whoa, wait, what? Now? He says as the field of fire unleashes another set of blasts. Yes, now, unless you think the great Nezu was wrong, and you are not the dragon warrior. Izuku is quick to cover up his fear by saying he couldn't do all of the moves the others demonstrated and that they should try to find something at his level. When Aizawa asks what level that is, he responds with let's just start at level 0. There is no level 0. Yeah, no, I'm betting he'll set that bar. He was like that when he got here to UA. Seems to be a trend with you, Aizawa says. Izuku looks down ashamed, but Aizawa is quick to apologize, before mentioning that he does seem to perform well under pressure. When Izuku suggests using a simple training dummy to start, Aizawa is a bit confused, but he agrees. When he sees the 5 up close, he is quick to geek out a bit. Aizawa is quick to wanting to get him into training, and while Izuku isn't sure what to do, he does attempt to truly hit the thing, only for it to knock him back into the training grounds. Welp, Midoriya is dead, Kamakiri is quick to say, and everyone else agrees. The 5 look like they are about to go in to help him, but Aizawa stops them. Izuku begins stumbling around the dragons and between the clubs. After falling into an accidental split, Izuku is hit in the face by the clubs and sent flying into the tortoise shell. While he is bouncing around in it, Aizawa comments that this will be easier than I thought. All Might looks at both the Red Panda version and real version with annoyance. You are beyond the usual level of harsh there. No disagreement. Izuku in that world doesn't deserve all of this, Aizawa says, shaking his head. After he slides out of the shell, he wanders into the wooden warriors and gets smacked around for a bit until one of the warriors' tails gets him in the crotch. Oh, 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 ho, 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 ho. My tenders. Oh, whoa. He takes a few breaths before trying to lean on one and proceeds to get smacked around some more. At seeing Izuku get hit in the crotch, all of the boys instinctively cover themselves. Oh god, I feel so bad for you, man, Kirishima says, while the others wince as Izuku gets smacked around some more, and he finally spins around until he is in the field of fire. Oh, at saying that he gets blasted 3 times, screaming out loud with each, he then drags himself over to the others, with his head slightly on fire. How did I do? He says exhaustedly. There is now a level 0. Aizawa says before putting out the burning hairs. I am not happy I was right, Aizawa says while the rest just shake their heads at how badly Izuku had been hurt during the whole ordeal. Though Kirishima was quick to point out, even though he looks exhausted, it doesn't look like he had any lasting damage. Maybe he can take a hit better than the rest. Later that night the 5 are discussing Izuku and where he stands in matters. Viper is quick to say with concern, I don't know what Master Nezu was thinking. The poor guy is just gonna get himself killed. Though the other members are quick to make fun of Izuku for his stature and build, with Tiger moving ahead while saying, one would think that Master Nezu would choose someone who actually knows Kung Fu. And Crane is quick to follow up by saying, yeah, or could at least touch his toes, with Monkey getting in the final insult by saying, or even see his toes. Okay, not just Aizawa, you guys are all kind of assholes, Ochako is quick to say. Kendo then pipes up by saying, hey, I seem to be more concerned about the guy. I don't want him to get hurt, I guess. Kamakiri and Mina both though agree with Ochako's statement. I hate bullies, but my other self is a pretty bad right now, Mina thinks to herself. Though Bakugo is quick to point out that his other self isn't entirely wrong. Unknown to them, Izuku heard everything, and looking down at the fact that all the members of the 5 despise him. When he gets to the dormitories he tries to sneak through, but he breaks a board and crashes into Crane's room. Oh hey, you're up. Now. When Izuku tries to make some small talk, Crane is quick to try and end the conversation. Ida looks down before apologizing to Izuku, noting that his other self is being quite rude and dismissive. After Izuku tries to do a few moves, Crane tells him yeah, you don't belong here. Izuku sighs before saying, I know, you're right, I don't know. It's just my whole life I've dreamed of. No, I mean you don't belong in here, in this room. This is my room, property of Crane. Izuku gets the point and backs out before mentioning that he's a fan. While in the hallway, he mulls over that the whole conversation was awkward. You think, is the thought around the room. When Izuku is getting to what is his room, Tiger opens the door. He quickly tells Izuku, you don't belong here. And I mean you don't belong in the Jade Palace. You're a disgrace to Kung Fu. And if you have any respect for who we are and what we do, you will be gone by morning. Izuku is more downtrodden by this and tries to diffuse it with some humor. Everyone look at Bakugo with an angry expression. The most angry being All Might. Bakugo would normally be quick to lash out, but All Might's presence is enough to intimidate him down. Even in a weakened state, he has a terrifying visage. Some time passes and Nezu then walks up to find Izuku next to a peach tree. I see you have found the sacred peach tree of heavenly wisdom. Izuku then turns around with his mouth full of peaches before apologizing. I understand. You eat when you are upset, Nezu is quick to say. And when Izuku tries to deflect this statement, Nezu just says, so why are you upset? Aizawa sighs before saying that Nezu is the only one doing the right thing. He's trying to help him, but my other self and the rest are just, I guess, a bit vindictive. And Panda Izuku doesn't deserve that. The students all agree, with Izuku being sheepish about the whole matter. With a sigh, Izuku begins to vent. I probably sucked more today than anyone in the history of Kung Fu, in the history of China, in the history of sucking, probably in the 5. Man, you should have seen it, they totally hate me. Totally. Is Nezu actually trying to help? Minda asks, but Momo is quick to say that sometimes a person has to vent. Before any progress can be made, you sometimes have to get things off of your chest first. As she says that, her own chest bounces a bit, drawing Minda's eyes, but he's quickly smacked by Sato. How is Aizawa ever gonna turn me into the Dragon Warrior? I'm not like the 5. I've got no claws, no wings, no venom. Even Mantis has those thingies. Maybe I should just quit and go back to making noodles. As he says that, he sits next to the tree overlooking the valley. Nezu thinks it over a bit before saying, quit, don't quit. Noodles, don't noodles. You are too concerned with what was and what will be. There is a saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present. As he finishes this statement, he taps the tree, causing a peach to fall into Izuku's hand. A few are quick to see the wisdom in what Ugwe Nezu had said, that worrying too much about the future or past can make it to where you can't move in the moment. Though Kirishima says that Ugwe has some cool skills to knock a specific peach into Panda Izuku's hands. The scene then transitions to Hitoshi. who is using the fallen feather to pick the lock on the shell, immobilizing him. He carefully listens for each tumbler to change before unlocking the last point. The needles hitting his pressure point then release, and he can take a much deeper breath before unleashing his claws and cracking the joints. Izuku is quick to look at Bakugo and Ida and say, "I told you so." Everyone else in the room is amazed that Shinso was able to free himself that way. Shinso in turn is curious at what his snow leopard counterpart will do next. He then forces out the needles before breaking the shell off. Enji then looks over the side at the top with worry. "What's happening?" Hazashi asks, before looking down and seeing Hitoshi free from his immobilization. As the rest of the guards are preparing, Hitoshi has started to stand, pulling a massive boulder chain to each arm. That is one manly cat. He was holding up a boulder like that with each arm. Kirishima is quite expressive to say. The others are amazed at Shinso's strength and apparent tenacity. With a roar to the top, Enji calls out to fire the crossbows, and the massive crossbows unleash their bolts, but one breaks the manacle on one arm, allowing Hitoshi to free the other. Hitoshi is free. "I must warn Aizawa. You're not going anywhere, and neither is he. Bring it up." Enji goes into lockdown and abandoning his guards at the bottom of the prison. The pros in the room realize what the Rhino Endeavor is going for, and quickly pray for the ones at the bottom of the prison. A few of the students realize what he is doing and are appalled. But Nezu points out, in this situation, you would prioritize keeping a dangerous prisoner contained. Unfortunately, most in today's society aren't willing to make absolutely sure that said dangerous individuals can't get out. This helps a few see the point, but they still don't like it. When one last crossbow tries to fire at Hitoshi, he stops it with his claws before kicking it back to destroy the crossbow. That is when he gets an idea for how to escape. He tosses up 4 bolts before kicking and punching each to different point along the cavern walls. With a crack of his neck, he backflips onto the last bolt to vault himself to the others. "Badass way to get out," Gyro says while watching Shinso run along the wall of the cavern. The others agree, though Kirishima is quick to call it manly. "He's coming this way," Hazashi says, but Enji assures him he won't get far before ordering his archers to fire downward. With a massive hailstorm of arrows coming toward him, Hitoshi is quick to get up to the elevator. He just barely makes it. Then the 2 guards at the elevator cut the chain to drop the elevator. A few are hoping that the attempt of the guards was successful, but others in the audience know it wouldn't be that simple. When it crashes, they celebrate, but Hitoshi comes up from the opening to kick them both in the face before using the chain for leverage to launch himself higher. When he reaches one of the main walkways, he engages the armed guards barehanded and decimates them all, smashing through a shield and sending a guard flying through 20 others. All of the spectators from UA are amazed by the skill and power Shinso is displaying yet again. If you could do this with Kung Fu, wouldn't quirks be redundant? He probably had to train an insane amount. But, yeah, I wouldn't want to face off with him. Aizawa answers a student. He climbs up to another walkway and continues his way up to the exit, busting through iron gates and knocking around more and more guards. It isn't much longer before he is at the final walkway between him and freedom. He's almost out, and it's only been about 5 minutes. How many people would it take to even come close to stopping this guy? Are a few thoughts tossed around while watching Shinso's escape. In between him and the gate is Enji and the last of his guards. Hitoshi snarls, and Enji snorts as if challenging each other. Hazashi looks about ready to shit all over the ground in fear. "We're dead. So very, very dead. Ha ha ha. Not yet, we're not. Now," Enji calls out, and a guard shoots a fire arrow to light explosives attached to the ceiling. And once again the pros see the point to that last resort, with All Might thinking they need one of those attached to AFO, or dozens of them, all across the madman's body. Hitoshi then tries to charge forward as fast as he can and get to the exit with one final leap, but he is just short. While Enji is laughing, Hitoshi sees that one explosive hasn't gone off yet. He leaps from rock to rock, vaulting himself higher and higher. At the top of a huge falling stalactite, he leaps with all his strength and just makes it. Well, Endeavor is dead, and Midoriya is the one who has to take this guy down. Takoyami says, or rather Dark Shadow says. Takoyami is still wide-eyed at how Shinso is fighting. As he is climbing up to the explosives, Hazashi asks, "Can we run now?" "Yes," Enji says with fear laced in his voice. With that, Hitoshi hurls the explosives to the gate and blasts his way out. Hazashi is off to the side coughing as Enji's horn cap falls next to him. All Might and the other pros are quick to send up a small prayer at the thought of one of their own dead. Todoroki, though, is a bit dumbstruck by the whole matter. Hitoshi then grabs Hazashi by the neck, but with a smile he says, "I'm glad Shifu sent you. I was beginning to think I had been forgotten. Fly back there and tell them the real dragon warrior is coming home." With a terrified nod, Hazashi is sent off with more explosions going off behind Hitoshi, and the screen cuts to black. Everyone who had been watching the breakout is awestruck at Hitoshi's apparent skill in this world. Okay, I think it's fair to say we'd need at least All Might or close to that level of power or skill to stop that guy, Kaminari was quick to say. A few others from the Baka squad nodded dumbly. All Might jokingly says to Aizawa, I think you trained that one too well in the other world. Aizawa though numbly nods, wondering if any of his other old students might want revenge at some point. For a few though, they were impressed by the variety of skills and combat styles on display. And Nezu was getting an idea for the next gym to add to the campus. And with a screen showing another wait time, the students get refills again. This shouldn't have taken so long, but I've been very busy. And honestly, coming home I didn't want to do anything more than sleep. So sorry about this, but now we can get on with the show. As the students and teachers were returning to the TV screen, they were each wondering what could happen next. Wonder how Panda Midoriya is gonna handle the training. Dude doesn't have the best build for this kung fu, Kirishima said. And a few others agreed, the most vocal being Bakugo. Izuku on the other hand was a bit downtrodden, but also thinking that his other self might have gained some new confidence thanks to Nezu. I'm more concerned about the monster that is Hitoshi rushing toward the Valley of Peace, Momo pointed out. Hitoshi himself is wondering why his other self was in prison and what led him to that path. As the screen starts up, everyone is anxiously awaiting the answers. The scene opens on Izuku trying to spar with each member of the five, but each of them throws him and knocks him around like it is nothing. This culminates with Aizawa striking and lashing out himself, primarily in annoyance at Izuku's stubbornness and determination, culminating with him kicking him down a large flight of stairs. Geez, overkill much, Mina says while wincing at each of Izuku's grunts. The others have similar looks and Aizawa just feels ashamed of his counterpart. Nezu is seeing a resemblance though and calls him out on it. You've done the same type of thing more than once. If he's smart he won't come back up, Tiger says. Monkey though points out, but he will. This an acknowledgement of Izuku's tenacity. Viper is quick to comment that he's never gonna quit. Is he? He's not gonna quit bouncing. Tell you that, Mantis says with a laugh, but Viper gives him the stink eye for that. A few are quick to tell Kamakiri, not cool dude, who sheepishly agrees with the statement. Later that night a few shouts are heard from Izuku's room. I thought you said acupuncture would make me feel better, he says as Mantis is sticking him with a few needles. Mantis then says to trust him. It's just hard to find the right nerve points under all this. Fat, Izuku says with a deadpan look. Mantis covers up by saying he was talking about his fur, before noting, who am I to judge a warrior by his size? I mean, look at me. I'm over here, he says before sticking Izuku again. Hey, at least I'm trying to help him. Don't seem to be succeeding though, Kamakiri says, and Itsuka is a bit confused on why she is trying to help him. When Izuku brings up Aizawa's mentality and what he's after with the training, a few of the members of the five try to quietly tell him where it is coming from, mentioning that he used to smile. But Tiger bursts in and says, that was before Hitoshi. Shinso is now very curious and invested into why he caused all of this change, as are the others watching. If he's going to stay here, he should know. I know about Hitoshi. He was a student, the first ever to master the 1000 scrolls of Kung Fu. Then he turned bad and Izuku start out confident until Tiger walks up, and he trails off. Dude, you are seriously epic in this story, Kaminari says with his eyes bugged out. The rest of the hero classes agree and the teachers wonder if he could have similar talent in hero work. Tiger begins his tale with, he wasn't just a student. Shifu Aizawa found him as a cub and raised him like a son. The image shows a young Hitoshi and Aizawa, before shifting to an image from the training hall, knocking back the training dummy with ease. And when the boy showed talent in Kung Fu, Aizawa trained him, believed in him, and told him he was destined for greatness. While the girls coo at how cute the cub Hitoshi is, the others are impressed with Hitoshi's skill. If he could do that with no training, it's no wonder he's a damn monster now, Bakugo says. The images then show Hitoshi growing in skill to the point of smashing apart a warrior training dummy. It was never enough for him. He wanted the dragon scroll. But Nezu saw darkness in his heart and refused. After that a few scenes are shown of Hitoshi rampaging through the valley. So I rampaged because I was rejected, told I wasn't meant to be a hero. Guess this guy kind of is me, Shinso says dejectedly. A few of the other students look down and can understand where he is coming from. In his outrage he laid waste to the valley and tried to take the scroll by force, and Aizawa was forced to destroy what he had created. But how could he? It shows Aizawa hesitating before Hitoshi snaps his leg and knocks him away. But as he leaps for the dragon scroll, Nezu steps in and stops Hitoshi in a single move. Holy shit, Nezu is a badass. He didn't even have to work at it, are a few of the things said across the room as they watch. Nezu though is quite happy with his counterpart's capabilities. I would quite like to have a good cup of tea with him. He seems like a capable and friendly sort. Aizawa loved Hitoshi like he had never loved anyone before, or since, as Tiger is saying that the image shifts to a young tiger practicing. And when proud of his strike against the dummy, Shifu is quick to correct the cub's stance. While Aizawa is limping away, Tiger has a sad look on his face and tears in his eyes. A few note that Cub Katsuki is cute too, but that they also feel bad for him. He just wants your approval, and you just avoid him, Todoroki says while shaking his head. As the image shifts to the present, the sad look is replaced with an angry one, before saying, and now he has a chance to make things right, to train the true dragon warrior. And he's stuck with you, a big fat panda, who treats it like a joke. A few are quick to say that this statement was overly harsh and uncalled for. Even Bakugo admits his other self is maybe going too far. As Tiger finishes that statement, Izuku's face contorts into a goofy look. Never mind, it's ass-kicking time, Bakugo says, while the rest facepalm. And just as Tiger is about to lash out, Mantis jumps in and shouts, wait, my fault. I accidentally tweaked his facial nerve. As he finishes saying that, Izuku collapses forward, back covered in needles, and may have also stopped his heart, Mantis says before tapping Izuku's face. Itsuka's eyes widen before she says, not helpful, and the rest are just worried about the sheer number of needles in Izuku's back. The scene shifts to Aizawa trying to push himself into an inner peace mindset, but failing constantly, before saying, will whoever is making that flapping noise quiet down? As he is about to start meditating again, Hisashi drops in from the roof. With a sigh, Aizawa turns around. When he sees Hisashi, he says, ah ha ha ha. Hisashi, thank goodness. I could use some good news right about now. Hisashi just stops before trying to find the right way to tell Aizawa what happened in Chorgam prison. Awkward, Minda is the first to say, and the rest agree, strangely enough. Aizawa then runs to the peach tree where Nezu is practicing Tai Chi movements. Master, it's very bad news. Ah Shifu, there is just news. There is no good or bad, Nezu says with a chuckle. Nezu just humorlessly chuckles himself before saying, that is a lie. Your vision, master. It has come true. Itoshi has escaped and is on his way here now, Aizawa announces with panic apparent on his face. Nezu on the other hand is shocked. That is bad news. Welcome to Earth. We're all panicking down here, Aizawa says with a few of the students laughing at his remark, one that Nezu agrees with. He then quickly smiles and says, if you do not believe the dragon warrior can stop him. When Aizawa tries to say that Izuku can't do it, he brings up again that it was an accident, but Nezu reiterates, there are no accidents. After hearing it a few times, some question if that is the turtle Nezu's catchphrase. Nezu then says, my old friend, the panda will never achieve his destiny, nor you yours until you let go of the illusion of control. Aizawa is confused by this, and Nezu is quick to point out that he cannot change when the peach tree will bloom or bear fruit before it is ready. Aizawa shakes his head, noting that control is everything to who he is and how he sees things. Logic and control are part of our daily life. We can't do without it. Nezu though shakes his head, as he can see some of where his other self is coming from. But there are things we can control. I can control where the fruit will fall, and I can control where I plant the seed. That is no illusion, master. Nezu nods but points out that the seed will still just grow into a peach tree, no matter how much he wants otherwise. That is true. You may be able to guide things, but you can't force everything into the boxes you want filled, Aizawa. The matter with Midoriya is a prime example. You were so quick to judge and denounce, you wouldn't see what was underneath. All Might chimes in, and though Aizawa wants to disagree, he knows the former number one has a point. And when Aizawa points out that a peach can't defeat Hitoshi, Nezu calmly buries the seed, telling his old friend that he has to be willing to nurture, guide, and believe in it. When Aizawa asks for help, Nezu just tells him to believe and to promise him he will. I will try, master. A few note that it is at least a start to growing and letting go of all of the control. Good. My time has come. You must continue your journey without me, Nezu says with a content look on his face. When Aizawa is asking his master not to leave, Nezu steps into the peach blossoms and leave Aizawa with one last message. Believe. Well, he'd better figure out how to change Izuku fast, because the top defense just floated away, Sato says with wide eyes at the spectacle before him. Others are confused as to why Nezu would leave, or pass on, or whatever he did. While this has been happening, Izuku has been impressing the five in a different way. First with his cooking, using his father's special noodle soup, then by joking around and having a bit of fun at Aizawa's expense. The other students are laughing a bit as well. Even Aizawa gets a kick out of the ears and ranting bits. When Aizawa arrives though, he is quick to say that Izuku will have to face off with Hitoshi, as well as mentioning that Uguay Nezu has passed on. Our only hope is the Dragon Warrior, he says with finality. Tiger is quick to rebuff this and ask that they stop Hitoshi. It is not your destiny to defeat Hitoshi. It is his. Where did he go? Yeah, he's gone. Takoyami is quick to joke about. As Izuku is running down the stairs, Aizawa gets in front of him to keep him from running. When Izuku points out that Aizawa had been trying to get rid of him, the master agrees. But now I ask that you trust in your master as I have trusted in mine. You're not my master, and I'm not the Dragon Warrior. A few others see the relationship as going downhill faster than it already was. Aizawa was hoping that his counterpart would have an actual plan for what to do next. Then why didn't you quit? You knew I was trying to get rid of you, yet you stayed. Izuku gets up and tells Aizawa exactly where he is coming from. Yeah, I stayed. I stayed because every time you threw a brick at me, or told me I smelled, it hurt. But it could never hurt more than it did every day of my life just being me. I thought that if someone could change me, make me, not me, it'd be you. The greatest kung fu teacher in all of China. Aizawa looks down before noting, guess I have a lot of extra hopes to live up to. Maybe that is why Nezu say I need to let go of control. The students though have different thoughts about what Izuku had said and what he was trying to do. I can change you. I can turn you into the dragon warrior. And I will, Aizawa says. But what Izuku says next troubles him. Come on, Itoshi is on his way here right now. And even if it takes him 100 years to get here, how are you going to change this into the dragon warrior? And when Izuku asks him more and more, Aizawa finally lets go of some of the control. I don't know. Aizawa just sighs and is a little disappointed with his other self, but also himself, as he doesn't have a clue what he could do to change the matters involved. All Might even notes that even a workout plan he could build would take far too much time. All the rest are curious as to what Shifu Aizawa can hope to do. Tiger had been listening to the whole matter and decided to go out and face Hitoshi personally. After an epic leap and quick recovery, he dashes off to intercept Hitoshi. Soon though, the rest of the five join him, with Monkey giving him a playful thumbs up, and the screen cuts to black. Well, I guess it is up to us then. We've got to take him down, Bakugo says. The others step back and hit the bathroom before the next scene appears. Nezu though pulls Aizawa aside and notes, that other version has a point that you often try to avoid. Ever since Loud Cloud, you've been quick to go after others, and especially students who you feel don't deserve the chance to be heroes. He then mentions that he has improved somewhat but is still trying to control too much. Aizawa wants to refute all of that, but he knows it is true. Perhaps by watching this, I could get a new perspective on the matter. As the students return, the screen starts to shimmer again. This has been a long time waiting and coming. Sorry to those who may not like it, but I want to finish what ideas I have for this multiverse and the links between them. So on with the show. As the students filed after the break, a few were wondering what could happen next. Think we'll get to see Tiger, Bakugo, and the five face off with Shinso first, Kirishima says while setting his popcorn down. Minda shakes his head before mentioning that the last transition didn't make sense for it. I'd bet that we're going to see Aizawa finding a way to break through the limits that he thinks Panda Midoriya has. You're on, Kaminari says as he settles in on the couch. Aizawa, while not approving of the purple pervert's usual mentality, does hope he is correct and that his red panda self will know what to do next. And the answer comes on screen as the TV lights up again. Shifu Aizawa is sitting by the sacred peach tree as the sun is rising, contemplating on where to go from here. As he is sitting, he hears some shouting and cries from the palace. His first instinct is to go to the training hall and see if Izuku is practicing there, but it is empty. Nezu hums to himself, thinking about the possibilities, while the students are just wondering if the panda is clumsily practicing by himself, like what he did in Crane's room, or when he tried to learn a split. As he listens closer, he realizes it is coming from the living quarters of the Jade Palace. When he arrives, he finds the doors to the pantry have been broken through and he can hear Izuku cries inside. As he is walking in, the shadow shows Izuku motioning and winding up for a strike. Itsuka is just looking and listening at the matter with confusion. What could he possibly be striking? She asks out loud, but also impressed by the proper form the panda had demonstrated. A few of the others are confused as well, but Nezu has put together how Izuku and what Izuku is doing. Said strike to be for busting into a locked pantry drawer. As he pulls out the food from within, he finally notices Aizawa in the room. I thought so. My tortoise self knew food was a big part of him, but perhaps there is more that he saw, Nezu says while stroking his chin. Most of the students though just question how the fat panda could shift to a seemingly athletic form and movement. Aizawa looks around at the damage that this fat panda had caused with confusion and slight amazement. And when he looks back to Izuku, the panda's only defense is, what? I eat when I'm upset, okay. Ochako agrees and admits that she likes to go for matcha when she is upset herself, and he's definitely got enough to be upset about, with everything that has happened, Todoroki says with concern for his panda friend. Itsuka though questions how he was able to do all of that damage, and in such strange areas. Ida and Momo note that as well, wondering where that possible skill came from. Aizawa just smiles a bit before saying, oh, no need to explain. I just thought you might be Monkey. She hides her almond cookies on the top shelf. At saying that, Aizawa walks away before hiding by the door. For Izuku though, he gains an elated look on his face before heading over to get at the cookies. There's no way fat-ass Deku is getting to those, Bakugo says with contempt on his face. Nina though gives out a hey. Why did he tell him that? wanting to defend her other self snacks. Kaminari chuckles before agreeing with Bakugo that Izuku wouldn't make it up there. When Aizawa comes back in, Izuku is up at the top shelves doing a split and scarfing down all of Monkey's almond cookies. All the while Aizawa is impressed. At seeing what Panda Izuku had managed, everyone was astonished. Though Mina calls out on the fact all of her other self's cookies are being stolen. How? What? Huh? Bakugo dumbly says with his head tilted to the side. Izuku, though, is amazed at what his other self had managed to do with minimal training. Maybe it's a potential that can't be seen, which is what Nezu had seen. He might have known I could do something like that if motivated the right way. The green-haired teen thinks to himself with a smile. When Izuku finally notices Aizawa, he freezes before asking, "Don't tell Monkey." For Aizawa, though, he is amazed to see Izuku where he is and asks, "How did you get up there? How does it look like he got up there?" "He climbed," Shiro says sarcastically, though he clams up when Aizawa gives him his usual erasure glare. Izuku's only response is, I don't know, I was just getting a cookie." So food is his motivator, huh? Not what I would have bet on, but everyone needs something to motivate them, Minta said with a chuckle, reminding himself that he was originally in the hero course to try and impress girls. The rest of the class looks at him with confusion, but a few of them do see what he is getting. For Bakugo and Izuku, they think about their motivations to be the next number one, though through different functions. For Ochako, it was to give her family a better life, as well as to save people, while Kirishima and Mina both think about the fact they want to be heroes for their own ideals and for others. "And yet you are 10 feet off the ground and have done a perfect split," Aizawa says with some slight admiration. Izuku, though, isn't so sure. "No, this is just an accident." "Whoa," the panda says before he falls to the ground. Aizawa then picks up the fallen cookie before saying, "There are no accidents. Come with me." Nezu smiles at hearing Shifu Aizawa say that before saying to the Aizawa next to him, "It seems you are starting to understand. At least in that world." Aizawa grunts before agreeing a bit. "But I'm still going to have to push him to grow more." That is probably what is coming next. The scene shows Aizawa walking up a mountain path away from the Jade Palace with Izuku following behind, carrying all of the luggage and breathing heavily. As he leans up against Mountain, he says, "I know you're trying to be all mystical and kung fu-y, but could you at least tell me where we're going?" A few Wanna students snort at the comment but agree that this is just like their Aizawa. "You didn't tell us what you wanted to do on the first day. And we ended up taking a big quirk test before we could even go to orientation," Suyu says with her finger under her chin. Nezu, though, is giving Aizawa a look to say that he is still annoyed that he skipped over his speech and orientation for that day. Aizawa, though, while mostly looking nonplussed, is panicking a bit at the glare the principal is giving him. "I'm probably getting a pay cut for that." At the spot that Aizawa stops to meditate, Izuku is even more exhausted, finally collapsing on his side before dragging himself to the pool of water in front of him. "You dragged me all the way out here for a bath," Izuku says before washing himself a bit with the water. Some of the less mature students snort and laugh a bit at the idea, but the rest are wondering what Aizawa could have in mind. "I think I know what my other self has in mind," Aizawa says with a small smile. Aizawa doesn't open his eyes as he says, "Panda, we do not wash our pits in the pool of sacred tears." At hearing that, Izuku stops and looks back confused. This statement gets all of the students chuckling a bit. Aizawa, though, nods and sees that this is much like when he was teaching Shinso the basics of the capture claw. This keeps him away from all other distractions. And even if the evil Shinso appears, we are probably far enough away we could still train uninterrupted. "Well done, Panda me." This is where Nezu unraveled the mysteries of harmony and focus. "This is the birthplace of Kung Fu," Aizawa says with reverence in his voice. At hearing that, Izuku is shocked, and the image pans out to show the pool in the shape of the yin-yang symbol, and then shifting again to Nezu practicing his movements and attacks, before cutting to Aizawa again. The students oohing at the description of the training area, as well as the movements that the other Nezu is demonstrating. Nezu himself thinks that that location would be a good place to get away from many distractions. All Might, though, remembers the training at Dagaba Beach and how it was far enough from everyone's thoughts that he and Izuku could train with no interruption. "I'm glad I found that place. Otherwise, I might have had to train him with Gran Torino." Actually, no, that situation would have been good and bad for different reasons, All Might thinks to himself. And then having Vietnam-style flashbacks of the hellish training Torino put him through. While standing atop a rock formation, he calls out to Izuku, "Do you want to learn Kung Fu?" "Yeah," Izuku says with an amazed and happy look on his face. "Then I am your master," Aizawa declares with the sun shining behind him. The students light up at hearing the declaration, and Shinso himself thinks about Aizawa offering to help train him to become a reserve student to the hero course. "Okay," Izuku says with tears in his eyes. With a little smile, Aizawa tells Izuku to not cry, and Izuku tries to recover a bit. "Always a bit of a crier, aren't you, Midoriya?" Kaminari says with a laugh. each of the students remembering the massive waterworks that the green-haired teen had let out at the sports festival. The scene cuts to Izuku standing in front of Aizawa in a field waiting for his first instruction. When you focus on Kung Fu, when you concentrate, you stink. The mood drops and Mina comments, he's still kind of a jerk, even when he's trying to help someone or train them. The panda me isn't wrong though. Panda Midoriya doesn't seem to do well when he is focusing on a task. But I think I see the way he can work around that, Aizawa says with intrigue. Aizawa looks to his side before saying, but perhaps that is my fault. I cannot train you like I did the 5. I see that the way to get through to you is with this, and thus he brings out a bowl of dumplings. Izuku looks relieved and comments that he is hungry. Aizawa chuckles before saying, good. When you have been trained, you may eat. Let's begin. I sense a manly training montage coming. Kirishima shouts as Aizawa is walking away. A few of the others are laughing at the idea that Izuku is getting trained by the motivation of food. I wouldn't be like that. Well, maybe if it was Katsuden. Izuku tries to defend himself until he thinks of his favorite food. And thus, the training montage begins, starting with Izuku doing sit-ups while hanging from a tree and trying to defend himself and his bowl of soup against Aizawa's staff strikes and trying to steal a dumpling from Aizawa's hand. With the most extreme exercise being making Izuku do push-ups to get at some stir-fried vegetables with hot coals under his stomach. What did I tell you? Montage. And it is manly as hell with what Aizawa has Midoriya doing, Kirishima says during sit-up and push-up exercises. Others are worried about what ideas this could give Aizawa going forward, especially when they see the smirk on said teacher's face. Oh no, he's thinking about making us do the same kind of training. Minda cries out. And while some are hoping that All Might or Nezu would dissuade him, the former instead offers to make training plans for each of the students following these guidelines. If you agree to not make the exercises lethal, Aizawa, I'd be willing to sign off on a few of these, Nezu says with a grin. We are screwed, Shiro and Kaminari say, while the others sweat drop beside them. But the training is showing progress. When trying to sneak some soup, Izuku gets attacked by Aizawa again, but he is able to deflect and block a few of the attacks before Aizawa steals his soup. Did you see that? Looks like the training is bearing fruit, Takoyami comments, though Tsuyu is quick to point out that Izuku still lost in the long run. The former comment make Izuku feel a bit of happiness, but the later statement knocks him back down again. To vent his frustration, Izuku kicks the staff, only to get smacked in the nose by the staff. With that action, a lot of the students get a bit of a laugh at Izuku's expense. Even All Might and Aizawa chuckle at the action. The scene cuts to Izuku practicing and mirroring the motions Aizawa is demonstrating, doing one-handed push-ups, and then sparring against Aizawa blocking multiple strikes from his staff. The panda finishes his demonstration of his newly gained skills with a kata movement atop the same rock formation Aizawa stood on before. Itsuka though is impressed with how quickly the panda Izuku had grown. Hey Midoriya, any chance you'd be interested in sparring sometime? No quirks, just martial arts. I'd like to see what you can do. And maybe I could teach you a few things, Itsuka says with a smirk. Izuku is surprised but also happy to learn from a martial artist like Itsuka. That'd be great, Kendo. It could probably help with evolving my fighting style. I can teach you a few things too, Deku-kun, Achako says while sitting next to him and not wanting to be left out. The teachers are just observing, but All Might definitely sees this as a great step forward for his successor. He thinks to himself, this can help to get young Midoriya away from copying me all the time. And it could help him with relating to people, especially girls. The next scene shows Aizawa sitting under a tree with a few bowls in front of him. He tells Izuku he can eat, but Izuku isn't so sure. Just like that. No sit-ups, no 10-mile hike. I vowed to train you and you have been trained. You are free to eat, Aizawa says with a small smile, gesturing with his chopsticks. Izuku still isn't buying it, but he is hungry so he sits down and cautiously grabs the chopsticks in front of him before grabbing a dumpling, never taking his eyes off Aizawa. Well, no surprise there that he doesn't trust you, especially after what you probably put him through, Aizawa, Nezu says while munching on some popcorn. Aizawa just gives the rodent principal a half-hearted glare of annoyance before turning back to the screen. Enjoy, the red panda master says. But when Izuku tries to eat the dumpling, Aizawa blitzes by him and steals the dumpling out of Izuku's chopsticks. I said you are free to eat. Have a dumpling, Aizawa says nonchalantly. When Izuku tries again, Aizawa kicks the dumpling out of his hand before catching it to eat for himself. All Might now giving Aizawa his own glare, but only for a few seconds. This is a bigger test for the panda. He has to prove how much he wants to win and improve. All Might thinks to himself, remembering the test he gave to Bakugo and Izuku. The students though just think about all the times Aizawa has either pushed them harder or deceived them to make them put out their best. The pair of pandas stare each other down as Aizawa says again, you are free to eat. Izuku's response to that is, AMI, with Aizawa retorting, are you, before spinning his chopsticks nimbly in his hand. Deku's not eating today. Aizawa's gonna make sure of that, Bakugo says with a teasing smirk. Izuku though is hoping his other self can prove his former bully wrong. Izuku takes a bit of initiative and knocks the dumplings up into the air, only for Aizawa to grab most of them out of the air and eat them. With a snort, Mina comments that, well, that backfired on him quick. Kirishima and Kaminari laughed as well, with Bakugo smiling at the results seen so far. With the last dumpling though, Izuku jumps up to eat it, in slow motion, only for Aizawa to grab it while he is still in the middle of his jump. Ida is confused by the slow motion moment, but the rest get a laugh at the panda's expense. Even Izuku has a chuckle at how his other self was thwarted so quickly. Before Aizawa can eat the dumpling, Izuku knocks the dumpling out of the chopsticks and back into the bowl, and the two battle back and forth with their chopsticks in the bowl, Aizawa laughing as he keeps playing keep away with the dumpling, culminating to playing a high-speed shell game with the bowls, with swirls in a few of the students' eyes. They all say they lost track of where the dumpling bowl was. Even the pros have no idea where the target was after all of that moving around. Izuku guesses right though, and they once again fight within the bowl to take the dumpling, with Aizawa smacking Izuku's fingers with his own. When Izuku smacked the bowl away to get some distance from Aizawa, the red panda uses one of his chopsticks to pin the dumpling on a tree branch. You might want to learn some skills like that, Aizawa. Your capture cloth does have the drawback of, well, attaching yourself to some villains after all. All Might comments as they are watching the fight for the dumpling. Aizawa nods before saying, I might look into learning a few other older styles. Could be useful. A few of the students try to copy what they see the two pandas doing on the screen. Mineta mainly thinking he could learn a bit from a small fighter like the red panda Aizawa. For Kirishima though, he is thinking that the slightly defensive style that Izuku seems to be using might be right for him and Tetsu. I'm already learning from Fat Gum. I think he sort of uses a similar style, even though he relies on his quirk more. The two spar and counter each other back and forth a few times before the dumpling falls off of the chopstick. When Izuku tosses Aizawa away, the slow motion cut is of him going to eat the dumpling again, and then Aizawa shuts his mouth with his other chopstick before kicking the dumpling away, Izuku chasing after it. Bakugo still has his smirk at the fact that Izuku's other self hasn't won and the object they are fighting for is just getting further away. Izuku though is noticing the tenacity that the panda him is showing. He hasn't given up and keeps fighting for it. Even though Aizawa is clearly more skilled, the other me is still holding his own. Aizawa smiles before grabbing his staff. The two then face off again, with Aizawa attacking with his staff and Izuku blocking and countering each strike, all the while keeping the dumpling aloft and waiting for his chance to grab it. Nice footwork and reaction speeds. For being a big guy, he's still plenty quick. Add in the fact he's probably gained a bit of muscle and he can probably hit pretty hard, Itsuka says while watching the back and forth combat between the two pandas. Nezu though notes that this version is much like their own Izuku. Young Midoriya specializes on observing and coming up with plans to defeat opponents on the fly, and in this version's case he is waiting for just the right moment, which should be coming up right about. Nezu leaves off while watching the screen. He gets his moment after knocking down the staff before side flipping over his master and belly bouncing the dumpling. When he lands, he catches the dumpling in his chopsticks. Aizawa was impressed by the progress and then gestures that he can eat. You were saying, Bakugo, Ochako says with a smile at the explosive Pomeranian. Said annoying dog is just gritting his teeth that Deku managed to beat the teacher that his other self couldn't even touch. While the other students are impressed by the growth that the panda had shown. It's kinda like what the last year has been like. Midoriya could barely use his quirk before without breaking something, and now he can move around faster than Bakugo and Ida at points, Kaminari says, though this awards him with an explosion to the face from Bakugo. Before said explosive fool shouts about being faster than Izuku. All Might and Aizawa both though agree with Kaminari's point, but then the dumpling is tossed to Aizawa's open hand. I'm not hungry, Izuku says with a confident smirk. Aizawa's look of surprise turns to one of pride as his panda student bows to him, and the screen fades to black. Aizawa and Izuku both smile at the interaction, with Itsuka and Ochako thinking back on their own martial arts teachers. Kirishima just gives a cry of manly at seeing the interaction between the two as well, while the others are questioning why Izuku said he wasn't hungry. Nezu then says, it is because he no longer needs to depend on food to make himself feel better. He's grown more confident. Well done, Shifu Aizawa. A few of the other students think about this and what they may use to help themselves grow. For Mineta, it is being acknowledged by not just girls but everyone as a cool hero. For ones like Bakugo and Izuku, it is about trying to grow into the level that All Might set. Others like Ida, Todoroki, and Momo think about the fact that they are trying to be heroes for themselves or their families. This question is mulled over a few times while the students wait for the screen to light up again. This one was a bit longer though, to be honest. I was hoping I would get to the Tai Lung fight in this chapter, but I'll get it in a few other fights in the next chapter, so just have to wait a bit on that. Anyway, please review and maybe check out some of my other stories. Hopefully you all enjoy the end for this fight and the battles that I worked on. Nothing else to say, so on with the show. Okay, now we're going to get the fight between Hitoshi and the Furious Five, Kirishima says as he settles in with his drink and popcorn. A few of the others agree and Bakugo is quick to say, my tiger self doesn't need the rest of the five or that damn fat-ass Deku. I'll take the sleepy-eyed big cat down myself. Most of the audience just roll their eyes at his antics, but they can't wait to see what will happen in the fight to come as the screen lights up. The Furious Five rush toward a cliff with rope bridges attached to it before sliding to a stop. When they do though, on the opposite side of the long bridge is none other than Hitoshi. Tiger and his eyes meet from either end, and both let out a growl. Hitoshi then roars, before bounding across the bridge as fast as he can. Cut it. Tiger commands the five and each of them strikes a rope on their side of the bridge. At least those extras know how to follow orders, Bakugo says grumpily. Said extras give him a stink eye before turning back to the action. However, Hitoshi is almost across by the time the bridge is out from under him. So Tiger flip kicks Hitoshi's chin, sending the snow leopard back, but also sending himself forward. Mina smirks before saying, not sure you thought that one through, did you? Bakugo tries to lash out but Kirishima stops his best friend from going after his old classmate. The rest of the five notice this and quickly grab four of the ropes cut and hold up the bridge as Tiger and Hitoshi land, the former of whom is trying to maintain his stance on the bridge, but the latter is casually walking along the turned ropes of the bridge before asking, where's the dragon warrior? Bakugo grits his teeth before saying, what makes that damn cat think he isn't looking at the dragon warrior? Maybe the fact that you're already known, and if the dragon warrior was coming for him, he would have come alone, Minda says with a smug look, which is rewarded with an explosion to his face. How do you know you're not looking at him? Tiger asks angrily, but Hitoshi just laughs before saying, you think I'm a fool? I know you're not the dragon warrior. None of you. I heard about how he fell out of the sky on a ball of fire, that he's a warrior unlike anything the world has ever seen. All the while casually tightrope walking along the swaying bridge. Hitoshi nodded at Minda, noting that he was right. And my other self has some crazy balance. You're fumbling just trying to keep your stance, and I'm walking along like it's nothing. When Bakugo tries to lash out again, Aizawa first restrains him before asking Zero to tie him up. Izuku, Monkey says with a skeptical look in her eyes. Hitoshi's eyes light up and he says, so that is his name. Izuku, finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary. And as he is finishing this speech, Tiger rushes at him. The two trade blows before Tiger tries to use his legs to throw Hitoshi off the bridge, dragging the rest of the five forward while doing it. Bakugo, you must be far more careful in situations like these. You could easily kill all of us, Ida says while chopping his hands. Achako though points out, you know that one can't hear you right, and your other self is a crane. He could probably fly and save everyone. Ida face faults at that and the rest get a laugh. Hitoshi had grabbed the rail rope though and then flung himself upwards into the clouds. Tiger couldn't see Hitoshi right away, and when the snow leopard came down at him, he flipped over the bridge. But this didn't stop Hitoshi. He smashed through the boards and exchanged blows with Tiger while hanging upside down. When Hitoshi caught Tiger's leg after a kick, he slammed the other cat into the bridge before trying to throw him into the ravine. Kaminari quips that Bakugo is getting his ass handed to him. It doesn't look like Hitoshi is even trying. Bakugo wants to strike out at the electric boy, but he can't move due to all the tape wrapped around him. But Tiger clawed into Hitoshi's arm at the last second and flung himself up to the bridge again. The two fought while hanging from the wood and rope bridge for a time, but it became clear that Hitoshi was winning. We got this. Help him, Monkey said to Crane and Viper. Thus, she and Mantis took hold of the ropes holding up the bridge. I don't need any of your damn help, Bakugo shouts while the rest roll their eyes. To emphasize Monkey's point, Tiger was getting kicked in the face over and over by Hitoshi. Then the snow leopard kicked the tiger through the boards again before flip kicking him away. Hitoshi then spun the bridge to wrap the ropes and try to strangle Tiger. Gyro smirks before saying, you sure about that? Because it looks like you are as good as dead right now. Bakugo fumes a bit more while trying to struggle out of the tape. This was stopped and Tiger was saved by Viper, who slipped up in front of Hitoshi and smacked him up into the air. This undid the twisting and dropped Tiger into the ravine. Luckily Crane was watching and flew down to catch the falling Tiger. Achako gestured at the screen to Ida, who bowed and saw the wisdom of what his friend did. Viper then took advantage of her serpentine body and wrapped herself around Hitoshi's neck and arm, and then began making him hit himself in the face a few times. With a snort, Minda started saying, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. While immature, the rest couldn't disagree with the comedy of the scene. Itsuka then started thinking about if she could use snake kung fu movements to do something similar. But when he starts to fall back, he recovers enough to grab Viper by her throat. She hoarsely calls out Monkey. Before being pulled down, Mantis just tells his friend to go before taking the other rope. but not before straining a bit at holding up the bridge and the ones still on it. That is one manly mantis, Kirishima says with admiration. The rest agree, and the UA equivalent was wide-eyed as his counterpart's strength. Monkey then bounds forward as fast as she can before backflipping into a strong kick to Hitoshi's face, sending the villain backward to the remaining boards on the bridge. But the rough landing makes Mantis slide closer to the edge of the cliff. But the monkey Ashido needs to think her attacks through a bit more like Tiger Bakugo does. That could have been disastrous, Aizawa says with a critical eye. Mina ducks her head at the words while Bakugo is happy for some slight payback. When Hitoshi recovers, he starts sprinting across the ropes as fast as he can, leaping between the two. While still hanging onto Crane, Tiger calls out, "Mantis," and said insect winds up and snaps the bridge with all of his might, sending a wave with the ropes. Monkey and Viper manage to dodge at the right time, but Hitoshi isn't as lucky and is smacked in the face. Kirishima and the rest are more amazed at Kamakiri's bug self, and the hardhead lets out a loud manly "Now." Tiger calls out to the rest of the five, and they let out battle cries as they rush Hitoshi. Monkey starts, having swung under the bridge to gain momentum, and double kicks Hitoshi in the chest. While he is still recovering, Viper slides along Monkey's arm before whip striking the snow leopard in the face. Crane then takes his chance and cut one of the ropes with his beak, before kicking Hitoshi up into the air and tying the villain up. Tiger finishes the attack by double palm strike, and as he is coming down, Tiger cuts the other rope. Mantis then pulls back hard and pulls the five out of the ravine, while Hitoshi is sent back towards the rock pillar the bridge was originally attached to. Bakugo smirks before saying, "See that? We don't need some damn Deku to be useless. We handled it just fine." The rest of the teens just look at him with annoyance at the hypocrisy the explosive teen just stated, while the five catch their breath, then nod to each other. Their job done, until Tiger notices something. The other side of the bridge is moving. In fact, it is rotating around the pillar it is attached to. Well, that can't be good, Kaminari says before Gyro stabs him in the neck for jinxing the matter. Tiger's eyes widen as the rope that Hitoshi was tied to swings up, and he's not there. A few eyes look at Kaminari with deadpan annoyance, namely the eyes of the five. With an epic landing, Hitoshi is back. "Aizawa taught you well," Hitoshi says with a smirk, before rushing forward and Kai striking Monkey's chest. The blow causes Monkey to freeze up and collapse with a twitch. "But he didn't teach you everything," Hitoshi says while taking his stance again and roaring forward. "Revelry in the dark," Takoyami says, though his shadow quirk comments, "Does that really fit here?" For the rest though, they are concerned about the fate of the five. The scene cuts back to the Jade Palace as Aizawa and Izuku are returning from training. "You have done well, Panda," Aizawa says as they enter. Izuku though laughs at this before saying he has done awesome, bumping Aizawa with his belly while walking. The mark of a true hero is humility. "But yes, you have done." Aizawa punches Izuku's belly as a joke before saying, "Awesome." Nezu smiles before saying, "It seems like your other self has loosened up a bit." Aizawa grunts before taking a drink from his yogurt pouch. The two share a laugh before they look behind them and see Crane carrying the Furious Five, all of them badly beaten and paralyzed. Crane himself equally injured. "Holy shit, he beat the crap out of all of them," Minda said with fear lacing his voice. The rest of the audience is scared as well, some even questioning if Panda Izuku had a chance in hell of beating the pain train that is Hitoshi. Upon seeing them, Izuku starts freaking out trying to figure out what happened. "We were no match for his nerve attack," Crane says while trying to catch his breath. Aizawa looks Mantis over before saying, "He has gotten stronger," before striking some nerve points on the frozen bug. He does the same to Monkey, who when unfrozen punches Izuku in the face before shouting, "He's too fast." "Sorry, Izuku." Mina winces before saying, "Sorry about that, Midori. I know I don't want to punch that cute face." Izuku blushes at this, and Ochako gets a shadow over her. Mina backpedals and says she meant the cute panda face. After unfreezing Tiger, the big cat says, "I thought we could stop him. He could have killed you," Aizawa says before stepping over to Viper. And Mantis questions, "Why didn't he?" As Aizawa begins unfreezing Viper, he says, "So you could strike fear in our hearts, but it won't work." "Yeah, it's totally working," Kaminari says with a flat look. "Oh, it might. I mean a little. I'm pretty scared," Izuku says while backing away a bit. "See," Kaminari says pointing to the nervous panda. Aizawa fiercely says though, "You can defeat him, Panda." "Okay, are you kidding? If they can't, they're 5 masters, and just 1 me," Izuku says. But then Aizawa brings up the final point. "But you will have the one thing that no one else does." At that the scene cuts to the dragon scroll. The audience is glued to their seats in anticipation of what could come from reading that scroll, though one is just more annoyed that his other self was passed over someone he saw as beneath him. When Izuku asks if he is really ready, Aizawa has one thing to say. "You are, Izuku." "I think that's the first time I've called him, or anyone other than Nezu or Hitoshi by their name," Aizawa says with a slightly downcast look. But then Aizawa begins to move the petals in the pool of water with the wind, and when one reaches the scroll, it lightly lands on the edge before sliding over. Shifu then catches the scroll on end before tapping the pool. The whole of the audience was moved by the spectacle of retrieving the scroll, with one martial artist wishing that said skills would be possible in their world, although maybe not to the level of like Hitoshi. That could be devastating, Kendo thinks to herself. When Aizawa begins to describe what could be possible with the power of the scroll, Izuku starts to geek out more and more, though he can't get it open at first. So Shifu opens it for him. Probably loosened it up for you. Sure you did, you dumbass nerd, Bakugo says sarcastically with an eye roll. The rest have a little chuckle at Izuku's expense, though said green teen does agree with the statement, and is more curious about what he will be able to do with the scroll's power. As Izuku opens the scroll, a shining light is shown across his face as Izuku begins to freak out, the rest observing panic as well. The light, it burns. Dark shadow screams as the rest are wondering what secrets the parchment could be holding. But then Izuku reveals the truth of what is on the scroll. It's blank. What? The collective audience screams, with Izuku off to the side looking dumbfounded. When Aizawa questions that, he looks over the scroll before trying to understand Uguay Nezu's intentions. Okay, so, Nezu was just a crazy old turtle after all, Izuku says his defeat. While Aizawa refutes the claim, he knows that Izuku may not be able to handle the fight to come. Evacuate the valley. We must protect the villagers from Hitoshi's rage. Aizawa orders them all. Tiger though questions what Aizawa intends to do. Looking down, Aizawa says, I will fight him. I can hold him off long enough for everyone to escape. But Shifu, he'll kill you, Izuku says sadly. Aizawa closes his eyes in acceptance before saying, then I will have finally paid for my mistake. He then looks to his students before telling them all he was proud to have been their master. Not too different from what he did at the USJ. He was willing to sacrifice himself just to save all of us, Tsuyu says, thinking back on the incident. Mineta and Izuku think back on it as well. And while one is more terrified about that moment than the other, they both can agree that Aizawa showed what it truly meant to be a hero that day. Said teacher nods and agrees with his other self's choice. The five then start to lead the way for the evacuation, with Crane lighting the way. Izuku returns to his father's shop to help him leave. When Toshinori sees Izuku, he hugs him before talking to his son about the plans for the shop. Also, I was thinking we could have a kitchen you can actually stand up in. Izuku though had stopped and was just sitting by the cart he had started to pull. Todoroki thinks back on his Izuku as All Might's love child thoughts again, before stating he's trying to help, but he probably won't be successful. Said Hirosai silently agreeing with the bi-colored teen. Toshinori tries to bring up Izuku's spirits a bit more, but it has little luck. But he baits the panda by saying, I think it's time I told you something I should have told you a long time ago. At hearing that, Izuku perks up. So do we get to find out about his mom or what? Mineta says with a raised eyebrow. The rest are curious as well where this conversation could be going. The secret ingredient for my secret ingredient soup, Toshinori says in a conspiratorial tone. Izuku's face falls a bit at this, but he lets his father continue. And thus, the audience has a collective anime fall with Bakugo as the exception, and him commenting, how is this the time to be talking about that bullshit? The rest agree as they stand back up and watch the rest of the scene. Now then, the secret ingredient is nothing, the Goose Man says with a wave of his hands. Is the reaction to what the Goose Man had said. However, the more contemplative members of the audience start putting some things together, Izuku being the lead one and realizing what the scroll was showing, though Nezu had already figured it out. This catches Izuku off guard and he asks if he doesn't put in some special sauce. Don't have to. To make something special you just need to believe it is special, Toshinori says. Izuku's eyes widen and he pulls out the dragon scroll. The other contemplative teen's eyes widen and a few smile come over their faces. With the little bit of light he has, Izuku sees what the secret of the dragon scroll. As he sees his reflection, there is no secret ingredient, Izuku says before looking back to the Jade Palace. Nezu smirks before saying, by Jove, I think he's got it. Did you really just say by Jove, Principal Nezu? All Might asks said animal with an eyebrow raised. Standing atop the steps is Shifu Aizawa. He closes his eyes as the lighting flashes before Hitoshi is standing in front of him. I have come home, master, Hitoshi says with a slight bow. This is gonna be epic, Kaminari says while munching on his popcorn. Kirishima though jumps up and adds his 2 cents with, and manly. The rest roll their eyes but are also trembling with anticipation of the fight to come. Aizawa's face doesn't change as he says to Hitoshi, this is no longer your home, and I am no longer your master. Oh yes, you have a new favorite. So where is this Izuku? Did I scare him off? Hitoshi says in response to Aizawa's dismissive statement. But the master retorts back that, this battle is between you and me. Aizawa and Hitoshi nod, seeing what their other selves are wanting to do. So, that's how it's going to be, Hitoshi says with his back to Aizawa. That is how it must be, Aizawa says, taking his stance. Hitoshi then leaps up into the air, before unleashing a powerful hammer kick towards Shifu. And the manliness begins, Kirishima says with his eyes wide. We should invite everyone if this keeps happening. I need my manly bro here. Aizawa rolls his eyes but doesn't disagree to the idea. Aizawa dodges, and the ground where he once was cracks. Hitoshi then lifts up a large chunk with his foot before kicking it at Aizawa, who proceeds to shatter the boulder with the tips of his fingers. But this is a feint. Hitoshi rushes in as the boulder is breaking apart and punches Aizawa back again. Kirishima drops to his knees at the epic display on the screen, and the rest are amazed as well. I rotted in jail for 20 years, all because of your weakness, Hitoshi shouts at Aizawa, who defends himself by saying that obeying his master was not weakness. You knew I was the dragon warrior. You always knew. But when Nezu said otherwise, what did you do? What did you do? Nothing, Hitoshi shouts to his former master. Hitoshi's eyes widen, and then he looks down in sadness at what happened to his other self. Aizawa too feels some regret at the events of what happened and what led to his student's downfall. Aizawa again tries to defend his actions by telling Hitoshi that he was not meant to be the dragon warrior. That was not my fault, not your fault. Who filled my head with dreams? Who drove me to train until my bones cracked? Who denied me my destiny? Hitoshi shouted as he struck out at Aizawa again and again. Man, he is just letting everything out there. Though I'm not that surprised that the other Aizawa pushed his Hitoshi extra hard. He's done the same with us, Kaminari says offhandedly. The rest look at the electric teen in shock. I'm not sure what is scarier, the fight happening on the screen, or the fact you just said something so profound, Gyro says. The rest get a laugh at the expense of Kaminari before focusing back on the fight. After deflecting the spears Hitoshi had thrown as well as the broadsword the snow leopard kicked his way, Aizawa defended himself again with, I was never my decision to make. Hitoshi snarls before going over to Uguay's staff before saying, it is now. The two then fight over the staff back and forth, culminating in the staff snapping in two, with the peach petals blowing near it. Nezu bows his head a bit, seeing that incident as a symbol that his other self is watching from the other side, and may be saddened at what is happening. Hitoshi then kicks Aizawa into a wall, but the master pushes back against the kick. The two then take the fight more and more into the air, with lightning flashing behind them. This culminates in Aizawa trying to force Hitoshi's face down as they impact the roof and then ground. But Hitoshi breaks free and does the same to Aizawa, before kicking him away to opposite sides of the room. Hitoshi's impact, knocking down a brazier with blue flames spreading across the ground, and the snow leopard's paws and claws becoming a light in the fire. Okay, that is scary to look at, but it is so damn epic and manly, Kirishima says. For the others, they are mostly terrified at the visage of Hitoshi rampaging towards the screen with his hands burning. All I did to make you proud. Tell me how proud you are, Shifu. Tell me. T-E-O-L-L-M-M-M-E. Hitoshi shouts as he combos more and more strikes into his former teacher and father, before finishing the fight with a double fist strike. And once Aizawa has stopped rolling, Hitoshi extinguishes the flames on his hands. Jaws dropped at what Hitoshi's snow leopard self had said to Aizawa. For the two UA versions though, their eyes dropped in sadness at the failings of one and the anger of the other. Aizawa slowly gets up before saying to Hitoshi, I have always been proud of you. From the first moment, I've been proud of you. And it was my pride that blinded me. I loved you too much to see what you were becoming. What I was turning you into. I'm sorry. This whole speech seems to resonate with Hitoshi, as he falters from his rage for a moment. Come on, other me. Stop this, please, Hitoshi says quietly to the counterpart on the screen. But then he snarls before grabbing Aizawa by the throat. I don't want your apologies. I want my scroll, Hitoshi says while holding up Aizawa. Then he notices that the scroll is missing. He demands Aizawa tells him where it is before slamming the red panda onto the ground. Aizawa remains defiant even as he is running out of air and tells Hitoshi, you will never see that scroll. Never. Staying strong till the end. That is just like you, Aizawa, All Might says to his fellow teacher. Aizawa nods, while the students are praying that Hitoshi is stopped before killing their other world teacher. Hey, Hitoshi hears behind himself, and they're trying to catch his breath as Izuku stares. A few let out tense breaths, but Kaminari quickly says, good time for a save, man, but the fact you are already exhausted is probably gonna work against you. While most of the audience find the statement rude, they can't deny Kaminari has a point. When Hitoshi questions who Izuku is, the panda responds with, buddy, I am the dragon warrior. Briefly taking his stance before leaning over again to catch his breath. Itsuka's eyes widen before saying, wait, that stance. Okay, that's just too perfect in a lot of ways. He's using dragon style. A few of the others chuckle at the accuracy, but they question why it is perfect in a lot of ways. The marital artist's smile widens before saying, you'll see soon enough. You, haha, he's a panda. You're a panda. What are you gonna do, big guy? Sit on me, Hitoshi says with a laugh. Izuku just chuckles saying, "Don't tempt me. Hehe. Now, I'm gonna use this." Izuku pulls out the dragon scroll. "You want it? Come and get it." And just like that, Hitoshi rushes in and punches Izuku in the face, sending him flying. Just as useless as ever. Bakugo says it, seeing Izuku getting knocked away. Izuku just smirks though and says, "Wait for it." But Izuku bounces off of the pillar before bouncing into Hitoshi, sending him flying as well. With Izuku barely even faced, both fighters are shocked, and Izuku takes this time to taunt the villain. Izuku's smile widens and Bakugo is dumbfounded. Hiroshima though notes how the attack seemed similar to his mentor Fat Gum. That is the other reason Dragon's style is perfect. It's a defensive style that sends attacks right back at the opponent, so Panda Midoriya can counter whatever Hitoshi sends his way, Kendo says with excitement. Then Hitoshi rushes at Izuku again before knocking him down the stairs. Each time he hits Izuku, the panda bounces back some of his hit. Izuku even sits on Hitoshi's face as they are bouncing down the mountain. "Well, I did ask if he was going to sit on me. I don't think any of us thought it would happen though," Hitoshi says with a bemused smile. The rest though laugh a bit at his expense. When they reach the village proper, Izuku uses everything from pots full of noodles to woks, to even a cart full of fireworks to keep the scroll away from Hitoshi. Though after the last attack, it is stuck out of his reach. To help motivate himself, Izuku pictures the scroll as a cookie. Minda smirks before saying, "Everyone needs motivation of some kind." The others chuckle and wonder if the same kind of mental training could help each of them. He then begins to ascend up the wall toward the scroll. The scroll has given him power. "NNNOOO." Hitoshi shouts before kicking the building the scroll is stuck on. The dragon head goes flying, and Izuku runs after it. He manages to catch the scroll in midair, but Hitoshi is already on him. He drop kicks Izuku into the ground, before slamming down on him with a double fist strike. The audience gives a collective OHH and wince at hit panda Izuku had just taken. Hitoshi though is worried about what could have happened to the scroll, and if his other self managed to get it. Once they had landed, Hitoshi picks up what he has been searching for. Finally, "Oh yes, the power of the dragon scroll is mine," Hitoshi says and looks at the paper in front of him. He checks the back before saying, "It's nothing. It's okay, I didn't get it the first time either," Izuku says while standing up. Izuku smiles at that and thinks a bit more about the statement associated. In much the same way, it relates to him with why he was worthy of OFA. "There was nothing special about me in the same way as others, but my drive and will to help or save others was enough to prove to All Might I deserved the chance." Hitoshi is still confused and getting angry, especially after Izuku says, "There is no secret ingredient. It's just you." So, the snow leopard lashes out at Izuku with a nerve strike, but it doesn't work. In fact, it just seems to be tickling Izuku. In frustration, he attacks Izuku with a double fist strike, but Izuku takes the blow and sends it right back at Hitoshi, blasting him through a building. Itsuka's eyes widen and she says, "Okay, dragon style can't do that, but maybe that's just more about the panda side to the fighter involved. So, panda style." A few of the other students get a laugh at that and turn back to watch the effects of panda style. Izuku looks at his hands with a smile before Hitsuhi comes back. After blocking a few hits, Izuku steps on Hitoshi's foot to throw off his rhythm and counters more and more of his strikes, even using the snow leopard's tail as a defense and later weapon, as he tricks Hitoshi into biting his own tail, before butt bouncing the villain about 4 blocks into a building. The exchange gets most of the audience laughing and cheering a bit. Even Hitoshi is glad to see how his snow leopard counterpart is getting beat. When Hitoshi rushes at Izuku again, the panda stands his ground and clenches his butt before belly bouncing Hitoshi up into the sky, and it takes about 20 seconds before Hitoshi comes back down. "You can't defeat me," Hitoshi says while dragging himself out of the impact crater he left. "Pretty sure he can and has beaten you," Sato says while munching on a candy bar. You're just a big, fat panda," Hitoshi says as he tries to lash out again. But then Izuku grabs Hitoshi's finger before saying, "I'm not a big fat panda. I'm the big fat panda." "Oh no, you didn't just say that, big cat," Mina says at hearing the snow leopard's insult to the panda. Achako agrees and says, "Now he's gonna kick your ass a different way." Izuku is blushing at the praise his classmates are giving his other self, and he's looking forward to what he can do. Izuku then lifts his pinky finger and Hitoshi starts to freak out. The wuxy finger hold. "Oh, you know this hold," Izuku says mimicking Aizawa. You're bluffing. Aizawa didn't teach you that," Hitoshi says in desperation. This makes everyone raise their eyebrows and wonder where the panda is going with this. "Nope, I figured it out. Skadoosh," Izuku says before a golden explosion occurs. With their jaws dropped, the members of UA are stunned at the end of the fight. "So are we going to just ignore that Midoriya just totally blew a guy up with a flex of his pinky?" Shoji says with his eyes wide open. The villagers feel the effects from miles away and start to walk back to the valley. And when they get there, only Izuku is left standing. with a walk on his head and an apron around his neck. The villagers then celebrate his victory, culminating to the furious five bowing to Izuku, calling him master. The audience nods in respect to the unexpected hero that was the panda Izuku. He had persevered and defeated an enemy that five of them together couldn't, and at the end he had earned all of their respect. He realizes that Shifu is still up in the palace and runs back up. When Izuku tells his master he defeated Hitoshi, Aizawa tells Izuku, "Thank you. You have brought peace to the valley. And to me, thank you." As Aizawa is closing his eyes, Izuku freaks out thinking Aizawa had died, but the master just comments that he is at peace. The two lay there for a minute before Izuku asks, "Do you want to get something to eat?" "Really?" is the collective statement of the audience as the camera pans out. Aizawa sighs before saying, "Yeah." Then the credits roll with everybody was kung fu fighting playing. Aizawa snorts before joking about his other self really relaxing. The teens though are vibing to the song and looking forward to what could be next. "I wonder if we'll see more of Panda Izuku and our other animal selves," Mina says with a smile on her face. A few of the others were agreeing with her. Then the screen lights up different again. What pops next is a man with a white hooded coat on, standing atop a tall tower. "When I was a young man, I had liberty, but I did not see it. I had time, but I did not know it. And I had love, but I did not feel it. All this was ripped from me. And now all that is left is the mission I set for myself." At hearing that the students and teachers are concerned about what could be coming next, the hood of the man is pulled down, and what is seen is long black, green hair pulled into a ponytail, and green eyes burning with a passion for revenge. This shocked everyone, though some of the girls note how handsome this other Midoriya was. But Nezu tells them to stop for the night and they will continue tomorrow. Holy shit, this was a long one, but I needed to get the big fights out of the way. I hope you readers enjoyed it, and what I've got planned for the next installment. Please review and maybe check out some of my other stories. We'll be getting into an interesting set of chapters here. I'll probably do two with this before moving to a different story path. As long as the Ezio story is, it would take a long time to finish it all. Also sorry in advance for the fans of certain characters, but too many of them just felt right to use, so I had to go with it. So on with the show. When the students returned to their seats, some were gossiping about what this new version of Izuku could be involved in. He looked like some kind of fighter. Maybe he was a hero protecting people in a different way, Kirishima asked while scratching his head. Momo pointed out that his clothing looked a bit older, like Middle Ages to Renaissance era. Maybe that is when this will be set. I'm more concerned about that look in the other Midoriya's eyes. It reminds me of the look I used to have after my brother was hurt, Ida said while looking down. Todoroki and Izuku shared a look before placing a hand on each of Ida's shoulders. He looked up and could see that they didn't blame him for what happened. They didn't blame him for getting involved in the fight with Stain. Ida smiled back at his two friends before they all turned back to the screen. The scene opens upon the cityscape of Florence, Italy. At the bottom is the year that the city is set in 1476. The architecture is sprawling, and the scene shifts through the city toward a bridge over the Arno, just as breathtaking as when I saw it as a child, Momo says while watching the cityscape pass before them on the screen. The rest of the class is awed at the sight, so they miss that Momo once again slapped them in the face with how rich she was. The image cuts to Izio Auditor Dolph Irons. He is 17 at this time, tall, lean, and fit with a tan complexion common to those from the region. His green, black hair is long and slicked back in a short ponytail. He has a confident look in his green eyes. Mina and Toru give a quick wolf whistle at seeing the aged-up Izuku, the former saying, "Looking good there, Midori. Wonder if this is what you'll look like eventually." Izuku blushes while Minta and Kaminari are crying at the injustice of the world, or some crap like that. He turns to some of the men gathered before saying in Italian, "We stand together," and his followers agree with him. "Silenzio, my friend. Silenzio, crazy." He then speaks of what brought him and his friends together. "Katsuki Depazzi slanders my family's name and forces his own miseries upon us. If we a rock is thrown right next to Izio's foot, the man turns and sees the person who threw it. Katsuki Depazzi, roughly the same age as Izio. His blonde hair is longer coming down along both sides. He is paler complected compared to Izio and has a rage-filled look in his eyes. Wow, even in another world you are an angry person. Bakugo, Shiro says with a smirk. The explosive blonde grumbles in his seat. Enough of your nonsense, idiot. The angry young man says while his own men come up behind him. Izio just smiles before saying, "Buonasera, Katsuki. We were just talking about you. I'm surprised to see you here. I thought the Pazzi hired others to do their dirty work. It's your family that cries for the guards when there is trouble, coward. Afraid to handle things yourself," Katsuki says while pointing at Izio. Bakugo scoffs before saying how accurate that was. He can't handle anything himself. The rest of the class rolls their eyes at the blonde short fuse and watch to see where this will go. "Your sister seemed quite satisfied with the handling I gave her earlier," Izio says with a taunting smirk, while his friends laugh behind him. Everyone's eyes bug out at hearing Izuku say that, even in another world. Bakugo meanwhile goes from shell-shocked to enraged and tries to attack Izuku. He is quickly restrained by Aizawa and Shiro. "Midoriya, you dog." Though I guess it fits with those looks, Kaminari says with a smirk on his face. Izuku meanwhile has passed out. This enrages Katsuki, who says to kill him, and he throws another rock at Izuku. It strikes the young man in the face, making his lip bleed, but the young man shakes it off before joining the rest in the fight, brawling and punching his way through the thugs of the Pazzi, even countering one with a headbutt to the face and a knee to the face to follow up. Well, some things about Bakugo don't change, but Midoriya is a pretty manly fighter though. He's knocking those thugs' heads like it's nothing, Kirishima says while trying to copy the movements he sees. Kendo though is less impressed with the street brawling scene on the screen. Then who walks up but a brown, blonde-haired individual with a big smirk on his face. "Hey, behind you." Izuku seems surprised and says, "Mirio, what are you doing here?" Just then another thug runs up and tries to attack Mirio. But the older man easily counters the thug and casually says, "I wanted to see if baby brother had learned to fight." Izuku is wide-eyed again before saying, "Mirio-senpai is my brother." Most watching are stunned, but Ochako and those who were at the Shai Hisaki raid can see it. "He's already our senior, but you two trained under the same hero. You kind of are like family in that sense," Tsuyu says while tilting her head to the side. When the thug gets back up, Izuku headbutts the man and tosses him aside. He then asks what he thinks. "You have style, but endurance is what counts. Let's see how many of them you can ruin before they get the best of you," Mirio says with a smile. The two proceed to demolish a multitude of thugs before Katsuki calls for a retreat. Those two whooped your boys, Bakugo," Kaminari says confidently as Bakugo is tied up at the moment. When the explosive blonde tries to retaliate, Aizawa restrains him again and cancels out his quirk. "He will do nothing." "Am I understood, Bakugo?" Aizawa says while glaring at the boy. Bakugo wants to disagree, but he knows Aizawa will expel him, so he begrudgingly agrees. Izuku stalks forward to finish the fight, but Mirio stops him. "Your lip." Izuku feels it before saying, "It's just a scratch." Mirio shakes his head before saying, "Let the doctor decide." "It's not necessary. Besides, I have no money to pay for this doctor of yours," Izuku says with a roll of his eyes. Mirio just chuckles before saying to check the fallen men's pockets. Ida is quick to jump up and admonish the two men. "Stealing from those you have defeated? What measure of a hero are you? I mean, they don't look like they have quirks here, Ida. And given the time period, I doubt the laws matter or mean the same here," Minta says while scratching his head. The class president wants to disagree, but he can see the purple pervert's point, so he sits down with a grumble. The two run their way to a plague-masked doctor who doesn't seem surprised to see either of them. "You must help him, doctor. That pretty face is his only asset." "Fatiti," Izuku says as the doctor works on his face. Izuku thanks the man once he is done. This gets a few snorts from the audience, though when they translate what Izuku had said, they laugh a bit louder. "Not afraid to give your brother shit, are you, Midoriya?" Shiro says with a cackle. The two walk for a bit talking about how they enjoy their lives. Mirio then makes a challenge to Izuku to climb up the roof of the church. Izuku tells his brother he is on and the race begins, while Mirio quips that baby brother still has much to learn. Izuku retorts with, "I almost feel bad about this," as he finishes and wins the race. Izuku smiles at the friendly actions of the two on the screen. He then thinks to himself that he and Mirio could still do things like this even though his senior's quirk is gone. The two then climb up to the highest point on the tower, overlooking the whole of the city. It is a stunning sight. "It is a good life we lead, brother," Mirio says while helping Izuku up to the top. Izuku has a warm smile on his face and says, "The best. May it never change," with Mirio saying, "And may it never change us," with a hand of Izuku's shoulder as they look out onto their hometown. The audience is awed at both the view of the cityscape from the high point, but also at the brotherly interactions of the two, though Bakugo is annoyed and wondering when they will get to something interesting. "We really should head home." "Let's go," Mirio says while heading back towards the auditor home. Izuku then looks to his side before asking to wait. He sees that a light is on at a special place. Mirio just shakes his head before saying, "Izuku, let Acha sleep. There will be time enough for that later," Izuku says with a smirk. He then performs a leap of faith into a pile of hay. "Uo, what are you up to there, Midori?" Mina says with a teasing lilt. Izuku and Ochako though both blush and wonder what could happen next, though Minta and Kaminari are once again cursing the fact that the plain-looking goofball is getting the girl. Izuku sneaks his way toward Acha's room and calls up to her. When she opens the window to see Izuku, she says she should have known it was him. "May I come in?" "Fine, but only for a minute," Acha says while walking back into her room. Izuku smiles saying, "A minute is all I need." "Indeed," Acha says sarcastically. "Wait, that came out wrong," Izuku says as he starts his climb. Snorts of laughter ensue at the interaction between the two. Bakugo though makes a snide comment saying, "Deku wouldn't even last that long. Hey, he's at least getting laid, man." more than we can say for your other self, Gyro says while poking Bakugo in the side of the head. He wants to retaliate, but he can't since he's still tied up. When he reaches her room, it was clear that Acha was getting ready for bed. Her brown hair is slightly messy, and she is in her nightgown. Izio asks her to come to him and the two embrace before he gently strips her of her gown. "Oh Izio," Acha says with a coy lilt to her voice. This gets furious blushes to sprout on both parties' faces, with Achako floating up toward the ceiling. Suyu catches her before she hit though. Most of the guys though are slapping Izuku on the back at how much of a player he seems to be. Though the two pervs look like they want to strangle him. The teachers though are just wondering if they need to have a sex ed class sooner rather than later. The two fall to the bed and spend the night together. The next morning, Acha's father comes to wake her up to meet with her tutor. But when he opens the door, Izio is quickly trying to get dressed. "What is this?" her father shouts as Izio backs away. "Oh, nothing much. Just an Italian playboy waking up the morning after with his girl. One of many, I assume," Ciro says with a shit-eating grin to beat the rest. With Mina and Toro alongside him giving hue noises. "Perdonate Messer, Cheeto Venia," Izio says after getting his boots on and then jumps out the window. "I'll kill you." No, that's not necessary," Izio says before running off. Fights off a few of the guards while trying to somewhat feign innocence. "I'm mostly innocent." All Might just face palms before saying, "Yeah, no one will buy that story, young Midoriya." "Agreed," Aizawa, Nezu and Izuku say in response. Once the guards are dispatched, Izio loses the rest in the morning crowds. He eventually makes it back to his home, where his father Hisashi Giovanni Auditor is waiting. Ida sighs before saying, "Hopefully Midoriya's father will lay down the law with this reckless man." A few of the more serious-minded students agree, but some are wondering where this could go. When Izio tries to cover up for himself, his father starts to lecture him, mentioning all of the events from yesterday. "Your behavior is unacceptable." Ida and Aizawa nod, expecting a punishment of some kind for the young man's actions. With a laugh, Hisashi says, "It reminds me of myself when I was your age." And their hopes are dashed as that comes out of Hisashi's mouth, and they both anime fall over. The rest though are laughing and wondering what Izuku's father may have gotten up to in the past. Hisashi then asks if the incident will have an effect on his work, but Izio shakes his head before giving his father his word he will help. Izio carries out a few duties for his father. When he returns, Hisashi is meeting with a man with slicked back hair and a black coat. "You remember Koku Yuberto?" "Yes." Nezu raises an eyebrow at the new character before them. Ones like Ida and Momo recognize the man from political circles, as he was a politician of the Hearts and Minds Party. The pros though thought of the rumors that he was associated with the Meta Liberation Army, and wondering if that relates to these matters. When Izio delivers the message that the maid's eyes are out of town, Hisashi asks his son to aid his mother and sister. "I'll need you in a little while, son," Izio makes sure before meeting with the rest of his family. "Oh, we get to see more family. Deku-kun, do you actually have any siblings?" Achako asks with confusion. Izuku nods and confirms he is an only child, and notes that, "I guess it's just going with people who seem fitting." "Hey Yuri, how are you?" Izio asks his pale-haired sister Ri Auditor. She is clearly distraught, and when she tells Izio some of what she heard from some of the girls. "It's Monoma. They said he was with someone else. I thought they were my friends. Harpies. You were better off without them," Izio says while comforting his sister. While Minda wants to comment about what Uri looks like at about their age, he smartly keeps his mouth shut, as the furious glare in Izuku's eye is enough to kill. Kendo meanwhile is tempted to find their blonde douche and beat him as well, while the rest not only want to kill Monoma, but they also want to comfort Uri. Uri then says with some venom, he should suffer for what he's done. "Wait here, I'll have a word with him," Izio says with some venom of his own, "and that word will involve a fist or two. At least it better," Toru says with a likely angry look on her face. The rest of the class agree, and they turn and notice that Aizawa too looks pissed beyond recognition. When he catches Monoma messing around with another girl, he's quick to put the man in his place. "Izio, my friend," Monoma tries to say, but Izio quickly punches the man in the face. A brawl ensues with Monoma never landing a hit. While he is on the ground after a strong headbutt, Izio stomps on and kicks his crotch a few times. When the fool tries to stand again, Izio knees him in the face so hard he breaks the man's nose. "Stay away from my sister," Izio says before spitting in his direction. "Damn right. Manly beat down for that unmanly piece of shit Madabro," Kirishima says while cracking his knuckles. Kendo also nods in approval of the beating that Monoma got. Minta and Kaminari though are hoping they don't make any stupid moves toward Uri in the future, as a powered-up kick from Izuku could destroy their futures. The girls meanwhile are hugging or patting Izuku on the back and congratulating him on being a good big brother. After the matter with Monoma is cleared up, Izio sees his little brother, Kauta Auditor, outside. "What are you doing out here?" Kauta was hoping to get some feathers for a secret. Izio offers to get them for the boy. Once he has recovered the feathers, he asks Kauta what they are for. "I'll tell you, in time." Izuku smiles at seeing the little boy he had saved be so happy and friendly, as do the others, especially those who remember what Kauta's first interaction with Izuku was. Once that is done, Izuku meet with his mother, Maria, and co-auditor. After a quick greeting, Inko teases her son by saying, "Still recovering from last night. I have no idea what you are talking about." Izuku tries to deflect. His mother rolls her eyes before asking for Izuku's help with an errand. "Not trying to make it weird, Midoriya, but your mom is kinda hot here. Is this what she looks like?" Kaminari says without thinking. Izuku then gives him a glare, and Gyro then earphone jacks the boy in the neck. While walking, Izuku and his mother talk about Katsuki and his father, who is up for trial on murder charges, and that Izuku's father is the person with the evidence against the man. They eventually reach their destination, the workshop of Leonardo da Vinci. "The Leonardo da Vinci," Momo says with shock written all over her face. The more intelligent students are in shock at seeing the world-famous painter, thinker, and inventor. The rest, while not knowing everything, are still in awe at the historic figure on the screen. "Madonna and Co." Leonardo says before greeting the woman. She introduces the two, who greet each other cordially. Leonardo goes to get his paintings to be delivered. While waiting, Inko suggests to her son that he should find an outlet for his self-expression. "I have plenty of outlets," Izuku defends. But his mother is not amused, and she says, "I meant besides vaginas." "Mother." This gets more snorts of laughter as a few of the guys call Izuku a dog again. While said dog starts blushing more and more, even Aizawa gets a laugh in. Izuku then helps to bring the paintings back to their home. The three discuss what they want to do. Leonardo discusses his frustrations with just painting and wishing to contribute to the world more directly. "I'm not content with just capturing the world. I want to change it," Leonardo explains. Inko assures the man he will do great things. "Indeed he will, madam." "Indeed he will," Ida says with a smile while chopping his hands. Once the paintings are at their home, Leonardo parts with them amicably. "I hope our paths cross again, Izuku." "Me too," Izuku says before shaking the man's hand. Momo and Ida are both interested in the fact that this other world Izuku was friends with one of the greatest minds of the Renaissance. Izuku likewise is curious, but it seems that the story is moving on. Hazashi then asks Izuku to deliver a few more packages around town and to get a message in a pigeon coop nearby. "And please, son, stay out of trouble," Hazashi asks Izuku. The teen goes around the city of Florence delivering the packages, though a few of the associates are quite suspicious. "Okay, does all of this seem off to anyone else?" Sato asks while munching on a few sweets he made. Most of the audience raise their hands, the only exception being Bakugo, who is still tied up. When Izuku returns home, he can tell the place has been ransacked. A maid of the family attacks him from behind before apologizing. When he questions what happened, she tells him that they took your father and brothers to prison. When he asks about his mother and sister, Eri comes forward to tell him they are all right, though Inko is barely responsive. Izuku is shocked by what he sees, and he at first wants to grab his phone to see if his mother really is all right. The rest are shocked and worried for what is to become of the family of Izuku. Even Bakugo is silent and hoping Aunt Inko would be okay. The maid offers to take the two women to her sister while Izuku goes to see his father in prison. Izuku climbs up to the tower cell Hazashi is being kept to talk with him. When his father mentions that the maid and Etta took the auditor women somewhere safe, Izuku questions if he knew this would happen. "There's no time. Listen closely, return to the house. In my office there is a hidden door. Use your talent to find it. Beyond lies a chest. Take everything you find inside. Much of it may seem strange to you, but all of it is important. Do you understand?" Izuku nods, and his father tells him that a letter within the chest has to be delivered to Yuberto. Ida raises a question of what talent Hazashi could be talking about. Could it be a quirk? They didn't exist back in these ages, Ida. So it must be something else. Maybe something that allows the other me to look through walls, or perhaps to see what others have done, or... Izuku says before starting a mumble storm. Bakugo rolls his eyes before asking someone to shut him up. Izuku eventually makes it back to his home and uses his eagle sight to find the hidden door. "Guess you were right, Midoriya. That power would be a lot help in hero work, let alone how your other self can move across rooftops," Shoji says while scratching under his chin. A few of the others nod and wonder if Izuku will become a hero like in their world. When he opens the chest, inside are a set of robes and armor, with a strange arrowhead symbol on the belt, along with a few weapons. Izuku puts the clothes on and holsters the weapon at his side. He then raises the hood of the white robe to obscure his face. He takes out another piece of armor that has a scroll with it in the letter, and heads out to Yuberto's mansion. And the screen cuts to black. "Well, that is a tense point to leave us hanging on," Minda says while getting up from his chair. The rest nod while getting up themselves. "But man, that version of Midori was... whoa, makes me kinda wonder what ours could be like," Toru says while walking to the kitchen. Mina agrees and also takes a moment to tease both Izuku and Ochako about their romance in another world. Izuku, though, is more concerned about what could happen to his father and brothers, but he puts it together when he remembers the rage in the other version's eyes in the preview. I see you've figured a few things out, young Midoriya, Nezu says while getting a refill of his own. The rodent-like principal has a slightly somber look on his face, and it confirms what Izuku thinks might happen. So this will only be 2 parts before I switch to a different story. Then I'll eventually come back to this one. The story of Assassin's Creed, especially the Ezio trilogy, is so long I can't do it in just 1 or 2 chapters. Please review, and maybe leave a suggestion of your own for a different multiverse story. But please make it one I can understand. Now we'll get to the elements that the heroes will question Mora, and Ezio will have to make a hard decision to save his family. So let's see what the UA group thinks of all of that. On with the show. As the students start filing back in after the intermission, a few are asking what could happen next. I'm sure that the proper justice will be served and the auditor family will be released, Ida says with confidence. A half of Class 1 agrees with him, but the rest aren't so sure. Namely ones like Momo, Todoroki, Tsuyu, Takoyami, and Shoji. They do hope that Izuku can save his father and brothers. But the 2 recommended students remember a big part of the teaser before this set began. He had a look in his eyes that reminded me of, well, me when I was trying to get back at my father for the hell he put our family through. Todoroki thinks to himself while looking at his left hand. Momo, though, is thinking about what Ezio had said, and that it hinted at him wasting his life away in search of revenge. I hope our Midoriya never loses himself like that, she thinks as she sits down to watch. The teachers, though, are concerned for a few different reasons. The first is that the man Ezio is going to see looks suspiciously like a suspected member of the Metal Liberation Army, and depending on the actions the other man takes, it could imply a darker duplicity that has yet to pass in our world. We might mention something to the commission, Nezu says with a suspicious look in his eyes. Aizawa and All Might nod before settling back in as the screen lights up again. As Ezio turns, he says to himself, I need to deliver these to Messer Huberto. As he tries to leave, though, the guards invade his family home. They accuse him of being a traitor with swords drawn. Ida is shocked and claims that they have no right to act as they are. Doesn't matter when the ones giving the orders want someone. Dead Ida, Aizawa says with disgust written all over his face. The rest of the students are unsettled at what he just described. Ezio draws his own sword as the guards attacks. He counters a few with a swift turn and cuts to the sides and backs. Others he strikes until he finds an opening and runs the guard through. A few are uneasy at seeing Izuku kill the guards, but Momo points out, I think the right to self-defense applies here. He's just defending himself, and they are the aggressors. Yeah, I mean they were the ones with sword drawn in the first place, so he should have the right to fight back. Right, Kaminari says with a slightly confused look. The teachers look a bit conflicted, but they do admit this would be a gray area for the right and wrong. With that done, Ezio slips up to the rooftops and makes his way to Gonfalonier Huberto's residence. When he reaches the man's house, he pounds on the door in a panic. When Koku opens the door, he questions why Ezio was there so late. Ezio is so distraught though he can't form a full sentence. Wait, child. Take a breath. Collect your thoughts. Koku patiently advises. I don't think anyone would be in a proper state of mind after these events, Shoji says while shaking his head. A few like Sato and Ajiro comment that they would probably be in shock or still freaking out. After Ezio has, he exclaims, my father and brothers were imprisoned. I was told to bring you this. After getting the documents, Koku reads them over. Oh, I see now. It's a misunderstanding, Ezio. I'll clear everything up. As he is saying this, another man walks behind him, his face shrouded and somewhat masked. Upon seeing the hooded and masked man, All Might feels his body tense up, and he grips his wound. It can't be, he thinks while looking at the screen. Izuku and Katsuki feel their skin crawl as the man shown walks by. The documents you've given me contain evidence of a conspiracy against your family and the city. I'll present these papers at their hearing in the morning, and they'll be released, Koku says before offering to let Ezio stay there. Ezio refuses and tells the man he will meet him at the piazza. Don't worry, Ezio. Everything is going to be fine, Koku says before shutting his door. Ida and a few others let out a sigh of relief, with the class president saying everything would be fine. But Izuku, All Might, Katsuki, and Nezu are worried. The night passes and Ezio heads for the piazza to see his family acquitted. When he arrives, Mirio, Kauta, and his father are at the gallows with nooses around their necks, and the crowd is jeering them. This sight makes everyone watching nervous. Even if they are pardoned or whatever, would it really be a good idea for them to stay in the city? Mina asks with worry etched all over her face. A fair number agree and say the whole family would still have to leave. No way they'd be safe after all these accusations, Kirishima says with Bakugo agreeing with him, which by itself shocks everyone. Koku then speaks up and says, Hisashi Auditor, you and your accomplices stand accused of the crime of treason. Have you any evidence to counter this charge? Yes, the documents that were delivered to you last night, Asashi shouts with a furious look on his face. Koku steps to the side and says, I'm afraid I know nothing of these documents. Ida's face drops, as do the faces of the rest of his classmates. The teachers, though, gain looks of anger and betrayal, All Might wishing with everything that he could leap in there and save all of them. At least the younger one especially. This is going too far. The former number one thinks to himself. Izuku shouts that he is lying and tries to push his way forward. The man from Koku's home the night before is in attendance at the gallows, and he smiles as the Gonfalonier announces the 3 guilty and sentences them to death. Asashi shouts that, You are a traitor, Yuberto, and one of them. You may take our lives this day, but we will have yours in return. Just as he finishes saying this, the executioner pulls the lever, and all 3 are hung. At seeing that, all of the girls break down and start to cry, especially upon seeing the terrified face of Kauta as he was dropped. Kirishima and Katsuki are in shock before shaking in rage. Ida too is stunned that a man supposed to be of the law would convict those when he had evidence to prove their innocence. Minda feels a bit of bile build up and feels sick to his stomach. The rest cover their faces and feel a few tears leak out. All Might and the teachers are all shocked and enraged as well, with Nezu making a mental note of this for investigating the politician of the Hearts and Minds party, while Aizawa looks like he wants to personally strangle Koku and hang that man up. And Izuku, at first he can't believe what he is seeing. He pinches himself to snap out of it, but when the image is still there, his rage builds and builds until he activates his quirk. His power builds to the point the rest feel the waves of energy flowing off of him. Achako and Tsuyu recognize this from when he fought over Hall. Achako steels herself and walks over to the green-haired boy. She quickly wraps him in a hug and says to him, It isn't all right, but it isn't our world. We are all still here. We're right here with you. As she lets out more tears, Izuku slowly starts to calm down, and then break down in tears at what happened. Once he and the rest have calmed themselves, they continue on, and hope that some of what Hisashi said was true, and that Koku Yuberto would face justice. As Izuku cries out for his father, the guards, Hooded Man and Yuberto take notice. Koku calls out to arrest Izuku. I'll kill you for what you've done. Izuku shouts as he shakes off 2 guards and draws his sword. I may have been at that spot too, but like this won't avenge or stop anyone. You need to get out of there, Ida says after drying his eyes, and remembering what his own selfish desire for revenge had almost cost him. A heavily armored guard steps up and knocks his blade away. Abidatilo, Koku says with a wave of his hand. One of the men Izuku had delivered packages to is in the crowd, and he says to Izuku, You'd better run, boy, and fast. Ida and Izuku nod, noting that Izuku stands no chance against the guards given he has no weapons. Even Kirishima and Bakugo, who would normally want to fight it out, agree that it isn't the time for that. Izuku grips his fist before running from the piazza. It takes a bit of sneaking and tricking guards off of rooftops, but he eventually loses them. When he finally stops to rest, he bends over and begins to cry. Izuku's own tears start to flow again, as do the tears of the rest of his classmates and teachers. Once Izuku has reached the street level again, he is keeping his distance from most around. Then the maid Aneta runs up and tells Izuku that she is glad he is alive. I couldn't stop them, Aneta. I tried, I swear. But there were so many guards. Izuku cries a bit as he speaks to the young woman. All Might shakes his head before saying, No one would blame you, young Izuku. You are up against odds that you didn't have the real power to fight back against. We may teach all of you to go beyond here, but even then, there are some limits you can't break right away. It takes time before you are ready for that type of battle, Aizawa says while addressing both classes. The hero students nod and turn back to the screen to see what Izuku will do next. Aneta then asks Izuku to come with her. When Izuku asks about his mother and sister, Aneta tell him they are safe and that she will bring him to them. Izuku shakes his head before saying, It's too dangerous for us to travel together. Tell me where to go and I'll meet you there. She tells him to go to her sister's house north of the Duomo. Smart. He knows the guards are looking for him, and if he has to protect her too, he'll be doubling in trouble, especially with no weapon. Aizawa analyzes. Nezu concurs but is curious as to why this girl is so loyal. With that said, Izuku makes his way there. When Izuku knocks and opens the door, he is surprised by what is inside. There are various courtesans roaming the foyer, with some attending to the male guests. I think we have the wrong building. All of the students blush at seeing where Izuku's counterpart ended up, with said green head rapidly waving his hands in front of his eyes. Minta and Kaminari though are wishing they could be in Izuku's place, just to get at least one fun night or day with some of those beautiful women. Ida is chopping his head though and lecturing about never going to a place of such depravity. No, this is it, Aneta says with a smile. As she leaves Izuku, a beautiful raven-haired woman in red walks around a screen. Izuku gives the woman a smile, which she returns before saying, It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Messer Izuku. Aneta speaks quite highly of you. I can see why. As she spoke that last line, she looked over Izuku with a coy look. Damn you, Midoriya. Why do all the hot babes go for you? Minda shouts after the mature woman eyes up Izuku's counterpart. Izuku meanwhile is shocked and a bit conflicted by what he is seeing in front of him. A few of the other guys are giving Izuku props for getting a beautiful older woman interested in him, while the girls are rolling their eyes, with Ochako getting a dark look on her smiling face. Aizawa too has an eyebrow raised, and then he puts it together. Of course, he thinks to himself while face-palming. Izuku smiles before saying, I appreciate the kind words, Madonna. Tai Prigo, call me Nimuri. I knew it, Aizawa says while shaking his head. This starts a new wave of jealousy from Minta and Kaminari. Even Siro feels it a bit too, given he got to feel her lap a bit before he was fully put to sleep. Lucky bastard, the three say in unison. Izuku meanwhile is hoping that Midnight won't find out about this, while also being thankful to the other Midnight for helping his family. Thank you for offering your home to my family, Nimuri, Izuku says with his hands clasped. Nimuri offers him a place to stay as well, but Izuku refuses. When she asks where he is going, Izuku responds with, to kill Koku Yuberto. Ida shakes his head before thinking to himself, he's just like I was after Stain injured my brother. But that won't avenge them, and it won't stop whatever they have planned. A few of the others have similar thoughts of the revenge being a bad idea, though a select few are more focused on Nimuri's cleavage. Nimuri steps up and says to Izuku, I understand your desire for vengeance, but the Gonfalonier is a powerful man, and you are not a true killer, Izuku. When Izuku interrupts her, she presses on by saying she can make him a killer. Or rather, I'm going to teach you how to survive. Nezu chuckles before saying, seems she takes teaching seriously in a different world. Now if only she was more serious in this one. The students get a bit of a chuckle at that. She takes Izuku out to the back piazza of her home and teaches him how to blend with a crowd, to disappear into the masses. He even learns how to pickpocket while he is training, and even from a guard. Ida is about to start a rant about all the illegal actions Izuku is taking, but he is stopped by Izuku this time. I think in this situation we can all agree the whole of the government is corrupt, and the laws don't apply the same way. You somewhat remember what that is like. Izuku gives Ida a pointed look. The class rep just sighs before sitting down again. Once that is done, Nimuri dismisses her girls, but a few of them don't want to leave Izuku's side. Nimuri is firm though and the girls leave. Now that you have learned how to approach the enemy, we need to find you a suitable weapon, Nimuri says. Izuku asks what she would suggest, and Nimuri points out that he has the answer, then presents the bracer she stole from Izuku. This gets a few more chuckles from the teachers. Then All Might says, she taught you your skills. She could easily use them on you, young auditor. The blade is not exactly in working condition, Izuku says while looking over the bracer. Nimuri mentions that he should be familiar with Leonardo da Vinci. She tells him that he could repair the bracer if he brought him the pieces. This surprises a few of the more intellectual students. They were shocked that one of the greatest minds of the Renaissance would be an accessory to murder, even if it was in another world. As Nimuri is walking away, Izuku asks why she is helping him and his family. Nimuri pulls up the sleeve of her dress and reveals the scars on her arm. I too know betrayal. With that, Izuku takes his leave. Everyone's eyes widen at the scars on Nimuri's arm. Nezu nods though before saying, I'm betting there is more, but that does make a lot of sense. He makes his way to Leonardo's workshop and knocks on the door. When Izuku enters the building, Leonardo greets him warmly and with a bit of sympathy. After a quick hug, Leonardo asks how he can help. I was hoping you could repair something of mine, Izuku says. Leonardo is more than happy to help, but he has to clear his workspace first. A few snorts of laughter come out as Leonardo talks to himself and clears off the table to work on the bracer. Izuku presents the bracer pieces and Leonardo looks it over. I don't know, Izuku. Despite its age, the construction is rather advanced. I've never seen anything quite like it. I'm afraid there is not much I can do without the original plans. My space, Leonardo says. It doesn't look that complicated, Kaminari says while looking at the weapon. Gyro then pokes him before saying, it only looks simple to us because we are from about 500 years in the future. To them it is probably an advanced in the way it works. Izuku is about to take the bracer when Leonardo notices the scroll that was with the bracer. He examines it and notes that the page is encrypted, but if my theory is correct, based on these sketches it may very well. Leonardo trails off. When Izuku tries to get Leonardo to explain, but he just asks his friend to sit and wait a while. Izuku turns his head to the side before asking, is this what I'm like sometimes? Yes, is the resounding answer from his classmates. This makes Izuku blush and a few others chuckle at his expense. It takes a few hours and Izuku has nodded off, but Leonardo has repaired the bracer. I managed to decode that parchment of yours. It showed me exactly what to do. Now all that's left is to remove your ring finger, Leonardo says nonchalantly while holding up a cleaver. Say what? Is the exclamation shouted by all those watching. Izuku though grabs his own ring finger before gulping. Izuku looks at him in shock. and Leonardo explains that the blade was designed to ensure the commitment of the wielder. Izuku shakes his head before placing his ring finger on the table and say, "Benny, do it quickly," and Leonardo brings down the cleaver. As manly as that commitment thing sound and as tough as Izuku is being, that was still way too relaxed of a reaction from Leonardo. Kirishima shouts as the cleaver came down, but it is instead embedded in the table. Leonardo chuckles a bit before saying, "I was only having a bit of fun, Izuku. Though the blade once required a sacrifice, it's been modified. You can keep your finger." The audience then let out a collective sigh and fall back into their seats. Izuku then puts on the bracer and tests the blade, making it extend and retract with light movements. Leonardo then asks Izuku to bring him any more pages he comes across. While they are talking, a guard knocks on Leonardo's door and demands to know what his relation to the auditors was. The guard takes him aside and starts assaulting the man. Kirishima stands up and wants to go into that world and beat down that jerk of a guard, with Bakugo asking to be let out of the restraints so he can do just that. Izuku can no longer watch this and quietly sneaks up behind the guard. He uses the hidden blade and stabs the man in the back while covering his mouth. Ida and Momo again try to rationalize the incident by protecting a friend and stopping an assault, but most watching are unsure what to think of Izuku, even in another world killing so easily. Leonardo then tells Izuku to hide the body with the others he had for research. "Well, that's not creepy at all," Gyro says with a shiver running down her spine. After returning to Nimuri's brothel, she tells him of the plan to assassinate Koku and avenge his family, and tells him that her girls will help him to carry out the deed. "Watch over my mother and sister while I'm away," Izuku asks Nimuri. She nods before saying, "Of course, Izuku," as if they were my own. All Might and Aizawa feel uneasy about the fact that one of their students, even in a different world, is planning to commit murder in broad daylight. While observing from a rooftop, Izuku witnesses an argument between Koku and Lorenzo de Medici, with the former threatening the latter about his allies. "Yes, your allies the Pazzi. Is that what this is about? Be careful with your words, Lorenzo. You might attract the wrong sort of attention." "Wait, does this mean that Bakubro's other self helped in killing Izuku's family?" Kirishima questions. Bakugo's eyes widen, and he thinks about the actions his Italian counterpart had taken against Izuku's. Could we really be that antagonistic with each other? He thinks to himself while the rest wonder what could be in store for Izuku down the road. Izuku reaches street level and blends with the crowd for a while. He then hires a group of courtesans and has them distract the guards out front. Once inside, he blends with the crowd inside until he is close enough to Koku. "You," Koku says with shock in his voice and on his face. Takoyami closes his eyes before saying, "Betrayal is the knife that cuts the deepest, and vengeance burns brightest when fed by a betrayal." He backs away, but Izuku will not be swayed. He grabs the Gonfaloni heir's back and proceeds to stab the man in the chest 5 times to make sure the deed is done. Izuku then lays the man down and the traitor says to him, "You would have done the same to save the ones you love." "Yes, I would, and I have," Izuku says before standing up. He looks to the crowd before shouting, "The auditor are not dead. I'm still here. Me, Izuku auditor." A few of the students gulp at how many times Izuku stabbed the man, but they also agreed that they would probably do the same in his place, or at least try to. "I'm not sure how big of a fan I am of the whole sneaking around part," Kirishima thinks to himself. He then takes his chance to run and escape the guards. Once he has to return to Nimuri's brothel and tell his mother and sister what happened. This brings the audience to a sad state again as they think about Little Eri and that she had lost family again in another world. Izuku himself is fighting back a few tears as he also thinks about Sir Nidai and the sacrifice he made to save the girl. When Izuku sees the two, he is happy. Eri quickly hugs her brother before complaining about what they have had to endure. She then looks around and asks where the others are. "Something's happened," Izuku says, sadness lacing his voice. This gets a few sniffles and the start to a few more tears from the audience, especially with what happens next. Eri asks what he means before her eyes widen. "No, it's impossible. No. I did everything I could pitch in," Izuku says with a heavy heart. As Eri starts to break down, Izuku brings her in for another hug. Izuku himself gets hugged by Ochako and Mina before Ida and Todoroki place a hand on his shoulder. He nods before letting a few more tears out. Even Bakugo is crying a bit at the sight in front of him, and he can't move his arms to wipe his eyes. Izuku then tells her they need to get somewhere safe, and he needs her to watch over their mother and to escort her to the gates. Nimuri kisses Izuku's cheek and has her girls help to escort the two outside the city gate. Before Izuku can leave, though, he has one last thing to do. While most don't understand what Izuku is going to do, Nazu and Izuku know immediately. Just outside of the piazza where his father and brothers were executed, he meets with Acha. She hugs him and asks what she can do to help. "My family's bodies. I can't just leave them hanging from the gallows. I need to give them last rites. Send them on to the next world." "I understand. Lead the way, Izuku." Acha says with sadness in her voice. Ochako tears up even more because of what she will have to help with, while a few others are angered at what happened to all of Izuku's family, especially to one as young as Kauta. When they find that the bodies had been moved, Izuku has a talk with a guard. He beats the crap out of him. Bakugo gives his seal of approval as Izuku smacks around the guard at the gallows. Kirishima and Sato both say they wish they could go in and help Izuku smack the guy around. Should we be concerned? All Might asks his fellow teachers. Aizawa shakes his head, and Nezu comments that it might not be bad for them to question more matters like this. After he has defeated the guard, he tells Izuku that the bodies had been taken to the river to be dumped. Izuku panics a bit and hurries to the river with Acha. When they arrive, the bodies had not been dumped yet. They were just lying in a heap near the river. This gets everyone in a rage. First, at the fact that the bodies were just going to be dumped like they never matter, and second, the way all three of them had been handled at the side of the river. Acha is worried and asks Izuku, "What will you do?" "Only one thing to do. Kill them," Izuku says. Ochako squirms a bit before saying in her mind, "Please, at least stop him from killing all of the guards. I won't bring his family back." Acha stops him before saying, "They did nothing wrong." When Izuku rationalizes his plan stating, "They follow orders unquestioningly. That makes them." But Acha stops him and pleads for him to spare them. Izuku agrees and sneaks behind the men's backs to move his family's bodies to a boat. Ochako breathes a small sigh of relief. She then grabs Izuku's hand before saying, "I'm glad you're at least willing to be flexible. Something tells me, if your other self hadn't been there, the other me would have just killed them and dumped their bodies in the river. But that wouldn't change or fix anything," Izuku says while tightening the grip on her hand. He sneaks over the guards and gets each of his deceased family into a boat. He closes their eyes, says a prayer, and sets fire to the boat before sending it down the river. While not the same kind of believers, each of the viewers from UA send up their own prayers for Izuku's family, that they may find peace on the other side. "I have to leave the city. Acha, I want you to come with me," Izuku says as he sends his family off. Acha shakes her head before saying, "I want to, but I can't. My family." Izuku then takes his pendant off and gives it to Acha. "So we'll always be together, Acha." She looks up at Izuku and the two share one last before Izuku slips away. This makes Mina and Toru cry out as their ship had been cast away. "Why didn't you go with him, Ochako?" Mina says while punching Ochako. Ochako just waves her hands before saying it wasn't her. "But I think I know what she means. I would have trouble leaving my family behind too." Once he reaches the city gates, he meets up with his sister and mother, and they start the long walk to his uncle's villa in Tuscany. Along the way, Eri keeps questioning what would happen to them, but all Izuku can respond with is that he doesn't know. But he does at least tell Eri that he gave them last rites. As the day ends and night falls, the screen cuts to black. With that done, everyone leans back and lets out a collective sigh. None of the students know what to say to Izuku, but a few, as they get up for refills or to go to the bathroom, pat him on the shoulder and give him a look of sympathy. Even Bakugo doesn't have anything nasty to say. Just before they finish, a new scene pops up. The truth is, war never changes. They hear this, and then they see a strange sight. A younger Izuku standing in what looks like military garb, and next to him are two large and buxom women, one with cannons on either side of her, the other with swords floating beside her and what looks like a runway on the other side. The young Izuku seems to sigh before saying, "Siren presence spotted on the horizon. Move out." At that, the 2 and 4 silhouetted others nod or salute and head out. "Please make it back." At seeing that, the reactions were mixed and confusing. Though Minda was quick to forget about going to the bathroom and ran back to Izuku. "What the hell? You get to up close and personal with those epic racks and asses. What is your secret? How do you guck?" The rant was stopped by Kirishima chopping the back of Minda's neck. "So that's why you do that to Monoma," he says to Itsuka. She snorts before laughing a bit, and the rest head for refills, though Izuku is wondering what his role in this next world is. Okay, so the next one will be kind of a test chapter to possibly making a new story. I just want to see what other people think about it. Please review. Oh, and there will be a different story after this next one.